You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1619 1619 Chapter 368 Entering the heavenly ranking in front of the ancient city gates 1. Traveling at a fast speed. Extremely fast. Su Yu's calamity word divine script was still throbbing. This made Su Yu want to curse. Could it be that he has followed me? Am I that unlucky? Go and chase after Qin Fang. Along the way, Su Yu had encountered mountains and mountains, water and trees. His speed was astonishingly fast, but he was still unable to shake off the sense of danger behind him. He had used the 5 elements escape art to perfection, but he still couldn't shake off his opponent. At the same time, the purple-haired Modwa strolled leisurely through the air, as if he was admiring the scenery around him. Pride? No, this was confidence. The confidence of a 7th-level mountain and sea realm expert was even stronger than before. The few geniuses of the human race were still far away from him. Even if he met some peak mountain and sea realm experts, he could still survive. As for sun and moon, unless he met a human in the sun and moon realm, the sun and moon of the demon race and the god race wouldn't dare to kill him easily. The gods and demons still needed to work together. Even the current demons wanted to work together to suppress the human race. Su Yu. He continued to move forward. Was that Su Yu in front of him? Qin Fang and Huang Teng could be considered old acquaintances. He lost interest. Unless these two people advanced to the 7th or 8th or 9th level of Lingyun realm, they would only have hope of fighting him. Sometimes it was also fun to raise a few evenly matched opponents. As for capsizing, so be it. If he couldn't suppress the current generation, how could he become invincible in the Tao? Even if he was invincible in the Tao, he wouldn't be as invincible as the great Xia Emperor and the others. Modwa wanted to see the strength of the newcomers. For example, the strength of this guy, who wasn't sure if it was Cui Lang or Su Yu. That was interesting, wasn't it? Heaven-destroying city. From afar, he had already seen the incomparably vast city. It was mysterious and ancient, existing since ancient times. Such an ancient city was scattered throughout the heavenly battlefield. Modwa had been to the ancient city once. Of course, it wasn't the heaven-destroying city. There, he also had some fortuitous encounters. Of course, he also encountered some dangers. Ancient city. Heaven-destroying city. His gaze was deep as he looked at the ancient city that faintly appeared. He smiled. Did Su Yu and the others want to enter the city? This place might not be a safe place. It might be even more dangerous than him. The more talented one was, the more dangerous it would be. This was the heavenly battlefield. The heavenly battlefield was a place that targeted geniuses. Of course, after passing through a crisis, it would be an opportunity. Hence, geniuses would be able to grow the fastest here. Modwa continued to move forward. Would Su Yu enter the city? He wasn't sure. Whether Su Yu entered or not, he had to go take a look. Heaven-destroying city. Since he had met it, it was fate. If he didn't go take a look, it would be a waste of his trip to the Yuhai Plain. He originally didn't want to come here. The Yuhai Plain was only suitable for geniuses below the noble level of the mountain and sea realm. Even if the noble level of the mountain and sea realm came, they would easily get lost. This place wasn't friendly to the noble level of the mountain and sea realm and the sun and moon realm. As for those people, they had their own places to train. Although Modwa wasn't the sun and moon realm, he preferred to go there. Only there would he be able to create enough sense of danger, a life and death crisis. Here, he was an invincible existence. Of course, he was talking about these young people. Modwa saw the huge city, and so did Su Yu. From far away, he could feel that wild and desolate aura. It was desolate, but it was also indescribably magnificent. It stretched across the world. Suyu was vigilant as he silently approached. At this moment, his tribulation words were pulsating from left to right. In any case, they were still faintly pulsating and were not too strong. This meant that there was a crisis, but it was not too dangerous. This huge city stretched out in front of him as if it was boundless. For a moment, Suyu could not see where the edge was. There were many city gates. Yes, many city gates. Just from what Suyu saw, there were 7 or 8 city gates on this city wall. Should he enter? How should he enter? Should he check his identity or what? Who built such a huge city on the battlefield of the heavens? Even the headquarters of the human race had only built a small city. Eastleigh City, behind Eastleigh City, there were endless barracks and tents, not a huge city. Suyu opened his eyes and looked at the big city. The most eye-catching thing in the whole city were the 2 ancient characters. Heaven Destruction. They were not human characters, nor were they written by gods and demons. They were not written by any race that Suyu knew. However, Suyu recognized them. They seemed to be a kind of special language, similar to the divine language. Once you outlined them, you would understand them. Divine language. Suyu muttered. Yes, the first thing he thought of was the God language. It was a true God language, not a God language. When he saw these 2 words, he knew the meaning. Heaven was destroyed. At this moment, in his mind, the golden picture book trembled slightly and quickly regained its calm. On top of the giant city, the 2 words flickered slightly and quickly regained its calm. At the same time, within the city lord's manor, in the incomparably huge palace, the stone sculpture opened its eyes once more. It was as if it had seen through the endless void and saw many things. After a moment, it closed its eyes. As usual, it turned into a stone sculpture, soundlessly and soundlessly. Suyu hid in the surroundings, not daring to rashly enter the city. He was also worried that Modwa would catch up from behind. For a moment, he was somewhat hesitant. At this moment, Suyu's expression changed slightly. The Calamity Divine text jumped. Modwa Na was here. Just as he was about to enter the city, a figure flew past him. Modwa Na glanced at him as if he had noticed him, but he didn't seem to have noticed him. With just a glance, Modwa Na walked towards the largest city gate. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1620. 1620 Chapter 368 Entering the Heaven Board before the ancient city gate 2. The largest city gate was unguarded, unlike the other small gates that had guards. The huge city gate was open, but there was no one around. Modwa walked over. The city gate was open, but he did not enter. Around him, there were some living beings coming and going by the small gate. Some of them recognized Modwa with a face full of fear, but some of them recognized him and whispered with a laugh, another blind. Whine. The devil fire burned. The living being that spoke was burned by the devil fire, and a shrill scream resounded through the clouds. In the blink of an eye, the Lingyun realm expert that spoke was completely burned. Modwa didn't even look in that direction, as if he hadn't done anything. At this moment, some of the living beings around retreated. There was someone beside the person who spoke earlier. It was an extremely old man, and his eyes revealed shock and anger that couldn't be hidden. Is the incipient devil race so overbearing? Modwa turned his head to look at the old man. He was a mountain and sea realm expert. He glanced at him and nodded slightly. The incipient devil race is just so overbearing. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed. Bang! In this world, there was only that one punch. This punch broke through the void and seemed to suddenly grow out of it. It smashed into the old man's head, and with a bang, the old man's head exploded. Demonic fire appeared again. A huge black wolf lost its head, and in the blink of an eye, it was burned to nothing by the demonic fire. Madonna. A living being said this name while trembling. This time, all the living beings in the surroundings retreated once again. The incipient demon race, Madonna. Lingyun realm. However, the third-level mountain and sea realm Black Wolf was killed by the other party with one punch. At this moment, all the living beings were shocked and afraid. The name of a person was like the shadow of a tree. Maudwa's reputation was simply too great. Maudwa ignored those fellows and returned to the huge city gate once again. The city gate was still open. Maudwa took a light breath and stepped in. Whing! Flames soared into the sky. Under his feet, devil flames reflected in the void. Maudwa walked step by step as if it was very difficult. 1 step, 2 steps. Each step seemed to have exhausted his strength. The domineering way he had killed the mountain and sea realm with a single punch had now become a stark contrast. In the dark, Suyu was dumbstruck. So powerful. A third-level mountain and sea realm cultivator would be completely helpless against this fellow, and he would be killed with a single punch. How terrifying. This fellow is so powerful. He's only at the 7th level of Lingyun realm. Based on his strength, I should be at least at the 6th level of the Soaring Cloud realm before I can fight him. At this moment, he was talking to Little Hairy Ball. Little Hairy Ball turned over and didn't want to reply. The strongest of the incipient demons was at the 7th level of Lingyun realm. No, perhaps the strongest of the 10,000 races was at the 7th level of Lingyun realm. You said that you can only fight him when you're at the 6th level of the Soaring Heavens realm. Little Hairy Ball didn't even want to talk to him anymore. He really wasn't human. Suyu was serious. The 6th level of the Soaring Heavens realm referred to the physical body. That meant that he would need at least 41 casts. He would need to be at the 6th level before he had any hope of fighting him. If he fought, he might not be able to win. Maudwa's current strength couldn't be seen through. Perhaps he would need to reach the 7th level of the Soaring Heavens. Perhaps, even more. This fellow, I can't see through him. How many times has he cast his body? 36 times. How many apertures have he opened? More than 100. No matter how he looked at it, it did not seem like he had only opened more than 100 apertures. As for casting his body, he might have cast it more than 36 times. Even though he had obtained the incipient demon race cultivation technique, it was only 36 casts. But who knew if this fellow was cultivating the incipient demon body casting technique? Why does he have to go through that door? Suyu was a little puzzled. There were many city gates, and some places seemed to be very convenient to enter and exit. Some creatures came and went, but the guards didn't stop them or check anything. If that was the case, why did Maudwa have to go through that door? Also, did he discover me? Then why didn't he kill me? Instead, he ran to the gate. It was as if his goal was not to kill me, but to enter the city. Strange fellow. At this moment, Suyu had countless questions to ask. Maudwa walked step by step with great difficulty, and Suyu could see sweat dripping from his forehead. This gate was evil. To kill a mountain and sea guy with one punch, it was difficult to even enter the door. What door was this? What would happen if he jumped over the city wall and directly entered the city? He will die. Boom! Suyu threw a punch behind him. Divine runes erupted, and battle techniques were unleashed. With a boom, the void exploded. Suyu. The guy who had just said, "He will die," was now rapidly retreating. A few hundred meters away from him, he was wearing a white mask, and his laughter could be heard. Do you want to know what will happen if you directly jump over the city wall and enter the city? Suyu's gaze was cold and stern, and his heart was filled with shock. I'm just thinking about it. How did this fellow know? As if he knew what he was thinking, the white-masked man smiled and said, because the fellow who is here for the first time will always have such thoughts. It's very easy to guess, isn't it? Are you curious about many things, wondering about many things? Who are you? Su Yu's eyes were cold. He couldn't see through this fellow. Run. Don't think about running. I have no hostility. The white-masked man smiled and said, I'm from the Heaven Hunting Pavilion, a member of the Heaven Hunting 4 divisions. Su Yu, you just used a divine literature battle technique, right? Can you tell me what this divine literature battle technique is called? Su Yu looked at him coldly and didn't say anything. Don't be so hostile, the Heaven Hunting Pavilion is only an organization. It doesn't distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong. The purpose of an organization is to make it convenient for others and for oneself. The white-masked man smiled and said, I want to invite you to join the Heaven Hunting Pavilion. Will you consider it? No. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1621 1621 Chapter 368 Entering the Heaven Roll in front of the ancient city gate 3. Su Yu kept stepping back. After thinking for a while, he was afraid that Su Yu would make a move, so he said, give me some time to think. After all, I don't know much about the Heaven Hunting Pavilion. Ha! The masked man laughed, don't be nervous. This time, I'm only here to confirm your identity. I have no other intentions. In addition, if you don't want to join the Heaven Hunting Pavilion, you can also use the sub-role to make some deals with the Heaven Hunting Pavilion. Deals? Yes. The white-masked man smiled faintly. Anything can be traded. Can you kill Invincible? The masked man was silent for a moment. Then, he said again, I don't have enough authority. Maybe. When you have enough authority, it's not impossible. Su Yu looked at the masked man, and his eyes changed. Inviting the geniuses of the 10,000 races to join, setting up the heaven hunting ranking, facilitating deals, and maybe even taking part in some hiring. I'm familiar with this action. Too familiar. This was the F*King organization in the form of a mutual aid association. Inviting people to join, then arranging missions, and giving benefits. In any case, the person behind the scenes would definitely make a profit. The masked man did not mind. He smiled faintly and said, everyone has their own needs. The Heaven Hunting Pavilion has never advocated anything. Everything is for the sake of justice. Su Yu stepped back again and asked, is Madwa a member of the Heaven Hunting Pavilion? The masked man said with a faint smile, I don't know. I'm only in charge of what I'm in charge of. I don't know anything about what other people are in charge of. This is also the rule. You're in charge of me now. Yes. The masked man said with a faint smile, are you curious about why Madwa wants to enter the city? Why does he have to go through this door? Why is it so difficult to enter? What kind of existence is the ancient city? Aren't you curious? I'm curious. Su Yu retreated far away, and the calamity-type divine script stopped bouncing. Only then did he say with a smile, trading intelligence. Sell these intelligence to me. Name a price. There's no need. The masked man said indifferently, can I see your true face? After reading it, I'll give you some intelligence as a reward. Heaven Hunting Pavilion is so capable, can't you see through it? Sure. The masked man was not provoked, and a mirror appeared in his hand. He smiled faintly and said, if you forcefully pry into it, then you're my enemy. As I said before, I have no intention of being your enemy. Do you really want me to forcefully pry into it? The heaven hunting list needed reliable information. As you've seen, it didn't reveal much. It just needed to know some basic information. Now that your identity as Chui Lang has been questioned, the Heaven Hunting Pavilion has the responsibility to distinguish between truth and falsehood. Responsibility? Su Yu raised his eyebrows and the masked man said indifferently, yes, responsibility. If we don't even know who a genius is, how can the heaven-hunting pavilion establish itself in the world? How can we make people believe that our information is accurate? Su Yu nodded, I am Chui Lang. The masked man smiled and raised the mirror in his hand. At this moment, a white light shone over and Su Yu quickly turned invisible and fled. Just as he turned invisible, space and time froze. Su Yu fell down from the sky. He was slightly shocked, but he was not afraid. Time kicked out, and with a rumble, the white light dissipated a little. The masked man was slightly startled, and quickly recorded it down. He knows the time battle technique, the king's silkworm extermination inheritance. He raised the mirror and shone it again. Su Yu's divine text exploded, and the masked man recorded again, possesses the 5 elements divine text. Su Yu suddenly stopped and avoided the white light. He hurriedly said, that's easy to say. I'm Su Yu. Why does this masked man need to be so rough? He also realized that that fellow seemed to be recording something. If he continued fighting, more things would be exposed. The masked man smiled, he said, you're Su Yu. Can you reveal your true face? I've said it before. I have no hostility. The heaven-hunting pavilion does not intend to hunt geniuses. The geniuses on the heaven-hunting list have fallen, we're only providing a list. As for who killed them, that's your own business. Su Yu was non-committal. This fellow was too difficult to deal with. He wanted to enter the city. Just as he was thinking. The masked man said again, the ancient city has both dangers and opportunities. If you don't know anything, it's not a good thing to barge in recklessly. If you enter the city directly, you might miss out on a great opportunity. Even a heaven's favorite like Modwa wanted to obtain some opportunities from it and chose to take the main entrance. Do you want to take the side entrance? Do you think you are inferior to Madonna? Su Yu hesitated for a moment and cursed inwardly. In the next moment, his face was revealed. The masked man looked at him for a while and felt a little tired. He said indifferently, please don't insult my intelligence. Don't insult the heaven-hunting pavilion's reputation. Xia Huyo, our heaven-hunting pavilion has a record of it. Su Yu cursed inwardly. His heart moved slightly, and in the next moment, another appearance appeared. Xia Huyo was quite famous, and he was also an invincible descendant. It was normal for the heaven-hunting pavilion to know about it. Now. He had just transformed into a person when the masked man took out an image and showed it to him. He said indifferently, you, Su Yu, are not a nameless person. Why hide your head and show your tail? Su Yu saw his own image. His heart trembled slightly. The heaven-hunting pavilion also had an intelligence agency in the human realm. But to admit his identity was very dangerous. Just as he was about to continue changing, the masked man recorded again, with a transformation divine text, suspected to be level 4, with a breath concealing technique, with an aura concealing divine text, suspected to be level 4. Writing to this point, he directly recorded on the booklet in his hand, with more than 10 divine texts able to open the sky blade, time, soul expanding technique, with innate blood essence, and able to fight with divine texts, this person must be Su Yu. Since Su Yu did not show up, then he would deduce it himself. At this point it was almost 100% Su Yu. It was almost because this guy refused to admit it. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1622. 1622 Chapter 368 Entering the heavenly ranking in front of the ancient city gate 4. Su Yu also saw what he recorded, and his eyes were a little strange. These guys were really strict. They just pretended to be their identities, and this wasn't enough. Was there any difference between Chui Lang and Su Yu? They had to check everything thoroughly. He was speechless. No wonder Xia Huyo said that it was very difficult to hide one's identity in the heavenly battlefield. It turned out that the Heaven Hunting Pavilion, this organization, actually specialized in checking one's identity. Was this acting as the patrol officer of the 10,000 worlds? F***CK. At this moment, the ranking board on Su Yu's body shook. He quickly took it out to take a look. At this moment, there were some changes to the ranking board. 18 on the heaven ranking. Su Yu, 19 years old. A genius of the Daming Mansion in the human realm. He was born in the Great Xia Mansion. He is a genius of the Divine Literature Department. Battle record, killed a 9th level Ling Yun. As for Qin Fong, this 6th level Ling Yun who killed a 3rd level Mountain and Sea, he fell to the Earth ranking. He was ranked 1st on the Earth ranking, while Huang Teng was ranked 2nd on the Earth ranking. Su Yu gritted his teeth and said, "Are you going to give me an answer just like that?" That booklet was probably something similar to a voice transmission talisman that had been sent to the Heaven Hunting Pavilion. The other party had changed the information. As a result, Su Yu had directly entered the bottom of the heaven roll. He had only been here for a few days. He had broken through from the yellow roll to the bottom of the heaven roll. Even Su Yu himself was depressed. Why did he need to be so famous? He would be targeted. It was too dangerous. The masked man hesitated for a moment, thought for a moment, and wrote some more things. After a while, there were some changes to the list again. Su Yu, doubtful, awaiting confirmation. There were a few more words. Su Yu vomited blood. What the F***CK, how could this list be made like this? The masked man smiled. It's fine if you admit it or not. The Heaven Hunting Pavilion will give us some of our own speculations. He was about to leave when he finished speaking. Su Yu hurriedly asked, "Where's the information you gave me? You haven't revealed your true form. You didn't say when." After he finished speaking, Su Yu transformed into his own appearance. The masked man's actions froze. He turned around to look at him and smiled. The geniuses of the human race are all very interesting. To put it simply, they were all rather shameless. He had met Qin Fong, Huang Teng, and now, he had met Su Yu. They all had some special qualities. In the next moment, a jade talisman flew towards Su Yu. Su Yu quickly used the flame divine text to burn it, then used the water divine text to clean it, and then used the calamity divine text to probe it. After a series of actions, only then did he accept the jade talisman. The masked man felt tired. It was true. He rarely saw such a fellow. He was overly vigilant. It could be said that he was very vigilant, but this fellow had a lot of guts. Since he did not want to be exposed, why did he have to run to Heaven Break Valley? A contradictory person, a complicated person. Perhaps, this was a genius. The masked man left, and his voice sounded, "If you want to trade, you can write down what you want to trade on the sub-leaderboard." That is something similar to a voice transmission talisman. It has no other use. Ha! Su Yu didn't say anything. Where's the location? There must be something. This fellow had accurately found his location. It must have something to do with the ranking board. He knew that this thing could locate him. However, the situation in the Heaven Hunting Pavilion was a little complicated. It didn't seem like they were going to directly kill him. Or rather, they wouldn't casually kill someone without paying a sufficient price. Su Yu thought about it from another perspective. Perhaps, in their eyes, the geniuses on the ranking board were all their trump cards. Locating the geniuses and killing them were all transactions. They would do it if they paid a sufficient price. Before they paid the price, all the geniuses were their trump cards. He chatted with the masked man for a while. At this moment, Madhwa Na was still passing through the city gate, his demonic flames billowing into the sky. The surrounding creatures also increased in number. Su Yu looked at it for a while and silently began to read the information given by the masked man. What was wrong with this Modwa? Why did he have to go through this door? Was there any difference? Su Yu didn't care about anything else, but at this moment, all the experts in the myriad realms who were holding the list took out the list one after another. 18 on the heaven list. Su Yu was suspicious. Su Yu. Chui Lang's name disappeared and became Su Yu, directly entering the heaven list. In the myriad realms, only 18 geniuses had entered the heaven list. And now, Su Yu had entered. He was at the bottom because he had killed Lei Ju and had not reached the mountains and seas. It was also because Su Yu had entered Ling Yun. His willpower was at level 1 of Ling Yun, and he had yet to display his ability to fight an entire level higher. Although his explosive power had the strength of mountains and seas, and Lei Ju had killed mountains and seas, the heaven hunting roll did not count like that. Great Xia Civilization Academy. Heart Cultivation Pavilion. One message after another was transmitted over. When Wan Tianxing took out his voice transmission talisman and looked at the latest list, he raised his head to look at the sky. Ling Yun, fighting the mountains and seas. Ling Yun is here. He muttered as he looked at the ceiling. The sun and moon revolved in his eyes. What kind of scene was this? Who was the mountain and sea that was fighting against Su Yu? Which level of the mountain and sea was it? He didn't pay much attention to it. The first level of the mountain and sea realm was also a mountain and sea realm. The 9th level of the mountain and sea realm was also a mountain and sea realm. Which mountain and sea was this guy fighting against? Which race's mountain and sea realm was it? That wasn't in the Grand Heavens battlefield, not now. He muttered. It couldn't be that short. It couldn't be. After Su Yu entered the school, he used the heaven-span mirror to look at the future. He had spent 100 years. Now, a year had passed. In August it was only a year. I don't believe it. F***ck, you better wait. I refuse to accept it. If I had known that I would see something in the near future, I wouldn't have watched it. Although it was one of the 10 million possibilities, he had spent so much of his life watching it. The shorter the time he spent watching it, the greater the possibility of this happening. The timeline he had to cross wasn't long. If it really happened in a few decades, it would be one of the 10 million possibilities. However, if it really happened in the near future, it would be one of the few possibilities. This point, on the other hand, allowed the 10,000 heavenly saints to confirm that the closer it was, the greater the probability of it happening. Sigh. A sigh. It happened too quickly. Everything was out of my control. Also, why did this brat go to the heavenly battlefield to cause trouble? Did he really think that no one would be able to kill him? No matter how talented he was, if he encountered an invincible opponent, he would be killed with a single slap. Shaking his head, he did not think about it anymore. If Fatty Xia went, perhaps he would take care of him. Not many people received this news, but the higher-ups all had their own intelligence sources. Daming Mansion. On Yuexin Island. Niu Baidao invited Chui Lang to drink some tea. After drinking for a while, he said with a smile, I told you that you wouldn't have to worry about it for a long time. Look, you don't have to worry now, right? That kid has exposed his identity. Although he said it casually, he was cursing in his heart. Damn it. Didn't you go to the relic to get the heaven yuan qi? How did you get on the heaven roll? He was about to explode in anger. To think that I even hid your identity for you. Speaking of which, this kid is too ostentatious. No matter how much I hide it, I can't do it. In the damning manner, he was still keeping a low profile. Keeping a low profile only caused a heaven and earth phenomenon. He only caused the death of a few suns and moons. He didn't do anything else, right? Why was he like a husky who had just been released from a cage in the heavenly battlefield? He was stirring up trouble everywhere. On the other side, Cui Lang was drinking tea and nodding with an indifferent expression. I knew that he would be exposed, but I'm still in big trouble, okay? Thinking of this, he sighed and said, Principal, I think I'm still going to die. Huh? A friend of the Tang mansion just sent me a voice transmission saying that old man Ching suddenly blew up his own courtyard. I'm wondering if he wants to kill me or Su Yu. What do you think? I forgot about that. Niu Baidao looked at him and said after a long while, maybe he wants to kill you and then capture Su Yu to force Su Yu to marry his granddaughter. What do you think? Cui Lang nodded. The possibility was very high. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1623. 1623 Chapter 369 Killing a Random Mountain in Sea for Fun 1. Before the destruction of the city. Su Yu looked at the information. The masked man did not give much information. However, the city gate gave an explanation. 9 gates. An ancient city usually had 9 gates. The one in the middle was the main city gate. The reason why Madonna wanted to go through the main city gate was because there were rumors that if one entered through the main city gate, they would see different things and obtain different opportunities. Moreover, if he went through the main city gate, his safety would greatly increase. Qin Fong told them not to stay for more than 3 days. There was also an explanation. Once he stayed in the ancient city for more than 3 days, he would encounter an inexplicable crisis. Some people would directly disappear and could not be found no matter how hard he tried. Some people would die an unnatural death and could not find the murderer. Some people would go crazy and become crippled, it was possible. The greater the clan's experts and geniuses were, the easier it was for them to encounter danger. As for what the danger was, he didn't say. He had to leave in 3 days. Of course, if you were to enter through the main city gates, the danger would be reduced. This was also recorded in the records. However, not everyone could enter the main city gates. The city gates were just left open. How one entered depended on one's strength, talent, and luck. It didn't mean that the stronger one was, the easier it was to enter. However, one thing was certain. The probability of a genius entering the main city gates was higher than that of an expert. A Sky-Soar realm genius might be able to enter. However, a Sun-Moon realm expert might not be able to pass through the main city gates. It was extremely mysterious. In the ancient city, there were opportunities and dangers. And in the ancient city, there was a special point. If one were to settle down in the ancient city, they wouldn't be affected by the 3 days. How would one settle down? It was very simple. Find an empty house and stay in the ancient city for 3 days. Every night, throw a jade token with your blood and aura outside the door. After 3 consecutive days, you would be considered a resident of the ancient city. At that time, you could stay in the ancient city. Nowadays, there were many such creatures in the ancient city. As for the effects after settling down, Su Yu didn't know. The jade token didn't record it either. However, Su Yu felt that it wasn't a good thing. If outsiders came, it was best to stay for only 3 days before leaving. Qin Fong and Huang Ting had warned Su Yu. 3 days at most. In the ancient city, the reason why it was said to be much safer was that one needed to find an empty house and hide in it for 3 days. Once the door was closed, no one could enter. These ancient cities were extremely special and could not be destroyed. If one was being chased, enter the city and find an empty house to hide in. If one did not come out, the other party would not even be able to detect them. This was a sanctuary. Of course, this was also very dangerous. Some fellows didn't enter the city but waited for you outside the city. You would always come out after 3 days. Therefore, even if you entered the city, it didn't mean that you would be safe. In the ancient city, it's best not to use force. Don't provoke the citizens of the ancient city. Leaving the city doesn't count. Leaving the city didn't count. Suyu noted this down and looked at the living beings by the city gate. Were these living beings temporarily staying, or were they the citizens of heaven-destroying city? Maudwa had killed 2 of them. Were they outsiders or residents? No matter what, they were still outside the city. Killing them shouldn't be a big deal. In the ancient city, there were some wanderers whose territories had been destroyed. Some of these fellows were unwilling to become residents of the ancient city. They would choose to stay for 3 days at a time, leaving the city after 3 days, and entering the city after leaving the city. This was also the reason why there were people constantly coming and going near the city gate. As for the number of houses in the ancient city, it was frighteningly large. It wouldn't be difficult for it to accommodate 10 million people, and there was no need to worry about not being able to find any empty houses after entering. There weren't many living beings in an ancient city. The Jade Talisman also stated that one shouldn't live in the core. The more core a house was, the more dangerous it would be. The ancient city was usually a circular area. At the center of the city was the city lord's residence, and the surroundings were spread out in circles. There were a total of 36 circles, which corresponded to the number of heavenly dipper sovereigns. The more outer one was, the safer it was. The more inner one was, the greater the danger. Generally, outsiders would choose to live in the outermost area. They didn't expect any opportunities and just found a place to settle down in the heavenly battlefield to avoid some danger and chaos. Very few people would live in the core room. Even the residents of the ancient city were mostly in the outer area. The number of residents in the inner area was very small. The more I look at it, the more mysterious it gets. So mysterious. Suyu was surprised. There were a lot of invincible people in the heavenly battlefield, and there were dozens of humans. There were also quite a few gods, demons, immortals, and demons. In addition, the top 100 races all had invincible people. In the entire 10,000 worlds, there were quite a number of invincible people. There were so many invincible people, and they didn't even have any information about the ancient city. If worst came to worst, they could just overturn the ancient city. Just as Suyu was deep in thought, a wave of exclamations suddenly sounded. They entered. They entered through the main city gate. Maudwa, it's really terrifying. It's too powerful. At this moment, Suyu raised his head and looked over. Maudwa had officially entered the ancient city. The huge city gate opened, and only his devil flames towered into the sky as he stood at the city gate. Maudwa turned his head and glanced outside the city gate, his voice was faint. Suyu, Cui Lang, are you interested in entering the city to play? It would be too regretful if I didn't enter the ancient city when I came to the heavenly battlefield. The ancient city is very interesting. The last time I went to Tianxiao City, I stayed in a house on the 18th floor. It's very interesting, do you want to try it? As soon as these words were said, Suyu didn't say anything, but the other living beings were all shocked and terrified. After staying in the house on the 18th floor, it belonged to the semi-core circle. This time, I will go deeper. Compared to killing, I will only get more benefits from these places. Maudwa laughed lightly and didn't say anything else. He turned around and walked into the city. Kill Suyu, kill Qin Fong, kill Huang Teng. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1624. 1624 Chapter 369, Killing a Random Mountain in Sea for Fun 2. What was his goal? To strengthen himself. As for eliminating his opponent, he was thinking too much. Even the invincible human race hadn't died yet, so what was the point of eliminating his opponent? It was meaningless. The young generation fought for the sake of becoming stronger. To strengthen themselves, to become invincible in the Tao. To become the mainstay of their race, to become the overlord of all races. To sweep across the heavens. He entered, and at this moment, Su Yu's figure appeared. His expression changed for a moment, and he reverted to his original appearance. The heaven roll had already said that he was Su Yu, so he didn't care about anything else. According to the records of this place, Invincible usually wouldn't come. Even if he did come, Invincible usually wouldn't make a move against the geniuses of the various clans. This was to prevent Invincible from killing them, causing the geniuses of the various clans to be forced to hide within their own territories. Of course, Su Yu was still fine. Right now, the target of the various races was not even Lu Wenyan. The key was Hong Tan. The multi-divine literature experts knew how to split techniques. Su Yu's cultivation technique had been passed down. However, if he was invincible, now it seemed like there was a great chance. It was still fine if his physical body was invincible, but once a civilized master was invincible, it would be a huge problem. After all, he was now second to Hong Tan. Lu Wenyan would be third. Of course, Zhou Pulong's side helped them share a lot of pressure. Su Yu appeared. Outside the city gate, some creatures suddenly entered the city. Su Yu glanced at them. The Black Armor Clan. With just one look, he could recognize the conspicuous armor style. Heaven Destruction City. He remembered that the red armor said that he was from Heaven Destruction City. So, this damn place was Heaven Destruction City's territory? No way. And outside of the ancient city, there was a human, an old human grandpa. Suddenly, he shouted, "Young man, you want to enter the city? Run! You're Cui Lang, the one who killed green armor and black armor. Now you're called Su Yu, right? Run!" The Black Armor Clan had a base nearby, and there was a part of the city. Some of them might have gone to Heaven Break Valley to kill you, but they didn't come back. Human. Su Yu was a bit surprised, and also a bit curious about the rules of this ancient city. With 10,000 races in the city, most of them would be safe, and it was normal for humans and gods to coexist. There were very few battles. It was hard to predict the consequences of fighting in the city. Su Yu smiled and said, "Thank you for your reminder, uncle. But after entering the city, they won't dare to attack, right?" The old man below nodded. "They won't dare, but they have to leave the city at some point. Don't be surrounded by them in the city. If they don't leave the city after 3 days, it will still be very dangerous. The Black Armor Clan has Sun and Moon stationed here." Su Yu said indifferently, "Sun and Moon? Is the Black Armor Clan that great? They don't dare to kill the geniuses of other clans, but they dare to kill the geniuses of our human clan. Sun and Moon surround and kill me? Aren't they afraid that our clan's invincible will make a move?" The old man wanted to say something, but he stopped himself. "That. Could you shout invincible?" He wasn't too clear about the treatment of geniuses of this level. The old man wasn't a genius either. Of course, he had been in the heavenly battlefield for many years, and he had the battle strength of someone who had just entered the mountains and seas. Hearing this, he said, "Young man, you can make invincible make a move. If that's the case, then we humans will benefit from it. Our clan's invincible makes very few moves." Sigh. He sighed. It was not good. The human race was invincible and their combat strength was not weak. However, due to the restrictions of the gods and demons and the deterrence of the monster race, the human race was invincible and only cared about their own plot of land. In the east of the East Rift Valley, the human race was invincible. In the west of the East Rift Valley, there were very few records of the human race being invincible. In places like the Heaven Rift Valley, most of them were formed after hundreds of years of war. As a result, although humans were strong, their deterrence was not as strong as the gods, demons, immortals, and demons. Su Yu was helpless. He could not contact the human being, who was invincible. The old man really did not know how to speak. "I was just trying to intimidate him, but you want me to find Invincible to intimidate him? Where can I find him? Madonna had entered the city. Should I just run away? In any case, it was safe now. Thinking of this, Suyu was ready to run away. A gentleman should not stand under a dangerous wall. Why did he have to enter the city? It was so dangerous. I didn't expect to get any benefits from entering the city. In the next moment, Suyu turned into a breeze and instantly disappeared from where he was. Silence. The autumn wind swept away the desolation like fallen leaves. Below, the old man's face was dull. After a long while, he smiled bitterly. F***CKU. Damn it, you look so proud. Your attitude of being a black-armored warrior is nothing. I thought you were going to summon Invincible to kill someone, but, you ran away. The surroundings were quiet for a while, then they burst into laughter. Human, ha ha ha. Little old man, do you still want Invincible to fight for you? The human race is suppressed by gods and devils. The dragon race and the demon race are intimidating. Invincible doesn't even dare to come out of the East Rift Valley. You'd better give up. Was that Suyu just now? The heaven roll Suyu who just changed the list. I'm laughing now. The group of living beings were all laughing. They were almost dying of laughter. A gentle breeze blew by. They were just short of falling leaves. A few more fallen leaves would be more suitable for this atmosphere. Everyone was laughing. Are you laughing to death? At this moment, the guy who was laughing to death just now suddenly lost his head. Everything was silent. In the next moment, Suyu's mountain and sea aura erupted as he slashed down with his heaven-cleaving blade. With a rumble, another ferocious tiger with a savage smile was cut into two by him. Invisibility. Breath restraint. The huge hammer struck out. With a bang, a huge wolf sea of consciousness was smashed into pieces. In an instant, the other living beings fled in all directions. Suyu's figure disappeared. A moment later, he reappeared in the distance. He smiled and said, "Are you laughing your head off? Don't be silly. It's not good if you laugh your head off." You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1625. 1625 Chapter 369, Casually Killing a Mountain and Sea for Fun 3. Silence. In that instant, 3 great demons were killed by him. One of them was a great demon of the first level of the mountain and sea realm. Fear and shock. On the heaven roll, Suyu's battle record had changed from killing the 9th level of the Lingyun realm to the 1st level of the mountain and sea realm. At this moment, a cloud appeared above Suyu's head. Suyu reached out his hand and grabbed, and a pair of gloves appeared. Weapons. Martial weapons. However, they were not Earth rank, but only peak Mystic rank weapons. A pair of gloves, an ancient casting technique. Suyu did not mind. He could forge them himself, but as soon as he held the gloves in his hand, he realized that the casting technique was different from the ones he had mastered. It was a great reference. On the heaven roll, Suyu had been ranked 18th just a moment ago. In the blink of an eye, he had become 17th, rising 1 rank. Lei Ju had killed him. Just now, he had swallowed a drop of blood essence to assassinate a guy who had just reached the 1st level of the mountain and sea realm. It was hard to say, but easy to say, that was all there was to it. He did not take it seriously, but the surrounding creatures were all stunned. Inexplicable fear. Today was also unlucky. First, 2 were killed by Madwa. Then, Suyu came and killed 3 at once. As expected, these geniuses couldn't be provoked. As for Suyu, after receiving the heaven and earth rewards, he sneered and once again disappeared into the void. No one knew if he really left. Under the concealment of his aura, it was actually very difficult for others to discover him. Of course, when Madhwa and these people discovered him, it was actually not strange. Suyu had the means to investigate. It was impossible for these top-tier evildoers not to have them. Even if they were precious, it still depended on who they were too. The incipient demon race had existed for countless years. How could they not be willing to give such a small thing to their race's top-tier geniuses? Underground, the old man's face was filled with shock. The three great demons who had just been killed, the one who had entered the mountain and sea realm, was on par with him. In the end, he had been killed. Looking at his battle results, nothing could be seen. Suyu's previous battle results had always been to kill 9th level Lingyun. They didn't know how strong a top-tier genius 9th level Lingyun was. They were Shanhai and Suyu didn't kill Shanhai. How could they really think that Suyu could be compared to the expert who killed Shanhai? They could only say that he was young and had the advantage. But at this moment, they didn't doubt it anymore. The old man sighed and sighed. The human race was in a difficult situation. Otherwise, with the strength of the human race, these small clans wouldn't dare to mock the human race. These human geniuses had also made a name for themselves in the outside world. Qin Fong from the Great Qin Manor, Huang Tang from the Great Xia Manor, Suyu from the Great Ming Manor, Shang Tianhao from the Great Shang Manor. These young people were all quite famous. In the previous generation, there were also many famous human experts. Hong Tan and the others could be considered as well. Hong Tan had also been on the heaven hunting list, including Xia Longwu from that era. No matter how strong they were, the situation in the outside world still made the human race in a disadvantageous position. There were too many enemies. After a few experts were killed, the surroundings finally quieted down. As for the soldiers guarding the city gate, they didn't care about this. Very quickly, a Shanhai realm expert walked out. He said calmly, "Suyu of the human race. Do you want to enter the city? You need to pay a fee to enter. These 3 great demon corpses will be your fee. Within a year, you can come and go as you please." Suyu's voice sounded out, "Why doesn't Madhwa need to pay a fee?" The expert from the mountain and sea realm said calmly, "If you can intimidate Madhwa, then you don't have to pay a fee. He has only killed someone at the 7th level of the mountain and sea realm. Your city lord is at the 9th level of the sun-moon realm, right? Are you afraid of him?" The expert from the mountain and sea realm paused for a moment, then smiled and said, "I'm not afraid of him, but Madhwa's master is invincible, and great ancestor is invincible. He once fought for him, and the city lord is afraid of him. Is this explanation satisfactory?" "Yes." Suyu sighed. Damn it, no matter where he went, he had to have a backer. "I'm very satisfied with your explanation. It's not pretentious, and it's very straightforward. Great-grandfather is invincible, and master is invincible. He once fought for him. I'm impressed. Fine, I'll pay." Suyu smiled. "Pay the fee, and come at will within a year, right? Here you go." In any case, what he casually killed, even if it cost him a drop of mountain and sea blood essence, was all for you. In this day and age, one's strength was inferior to others, so why not keep a low profile? With that, he disappeared completely. A moment later, several black-armored clan experts walked out of the city. The one in the lead was bursting with the aura of a mountain and sea, his peak aura. He quickly left the city and looked around. He took out a fixed origin ruler that was about the same as the one Suyu had seized. He looked around and did not separate. The black-armored clan did not dare to underestimate Suyu. No clan would underestimate these geniuses. If they separated, they would be easily ambushed by him. Who knew if this guy had left or not? As for the city, there was actually a sun and moon guarding it. In the end, he left early and went to the Heaven Break Valley to ambush. The immortals had informed him, but who knew, he did not run east. At that time, Su Yu's calamity-type divine script was jumping, and it was not just because of Maudwa Na. At that moment, the sun and moon were sweeping the area. Even the leader of the peak of the mountain and sea could not find Su Yu's whereabouts. More than 10 experts of the black armored race gathered together and searched along the city wall, but they found nothing. After a while, the leader of the black armored race said coldly, "Whether it's Su Yu or Cui Lang, our race will never let them go after killing two peerless geniuses of our race." The black armored race was also one of the top 100 races. The leader of the black armored race was an extremely powerful invincible realm. He had once killed an invincible demon, and when combined, he could fight against top-level invincible demons. Once he entered the black armored world, with the power of the realm, he wouldn't be afraid of any invincible attacks. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1626. 1626 Chapter 369 Killing a Random Mountain and Sea for Fun 4. Strictly speaking, he was even stronger than the Dragon Silkworm King. The Dragon Silkworm King and the Silkworm Slayer King had been fighting for so many years, but nothing had happened. The black armored race was even more unafraid. Although the human race was strong, gods and demons were all enemies. If the human race wanted to wipe out a certain race alone, the 10,000 races would not agree. This kind of human race that entered the various worlds without being suppressed was the most feared. Killing a race that was invincible could trigger the hostility of the 10,000 races. If the hare died, the fox would grieve. If the lips died, the teeth would be cold. Everyone understood these principles. Just as the black armored race expert was speaking, with a rumble, an armor fell from the sky. A burly man fell, covered in blood. The burly man's injuries were very serious, and his entire body was covered in blood. He bared his teeth and laughed. "You won't give up. Why won't you give up? Su Yu is here. Damn it, I've run quite a few laps and encountered such a thing. It's really hard. I hacked for an entire day, but it didn't explode. Commander." When the black-armored expert at the peak of the mountain and sea realm saw the armor that had fallen to the ground, his face turned pale with fright. He cried out in grief, and without another word, he dragged the other black-armored experts into the city. They had escaped. At this moment, the other creatures at the city gate were all fleeing. Only a few armored soldiers were still standing guard at the city gate. When the other creatures entered the city, they all looked at the city gate, their faces filled with fear. A sun and moon had died. The sun and moon of the black armored race. In the city, the soldiers who had spoken earlier saw the muscular man. After a long while, they asked, "Jingping?" Jingping laughed, "It's me. You still know me?" Jingping laughed and looked around. He asked curiously, "Su Yu is here?" "Which Su Yu? I only know Cui Lang, Huang Teng, and Su Yu. What's the matter?" After saying that, he looked at those people in the city and laughed, "Come out, I'll play with you. Let's see how you won't let this go. A bunch of trash races, useless things. You want to compete with us humans? How dare you be so arrogant?" Jingping laughed loudly. At this moment, he didn't have the slightest bit of the attitude of a mansion master. He was just a vicious thug. He stepped on the armor, which was the armor of a Sun-Moon Realm Mystic Armor clan. The ground cracked under his feet. Jingping sneered, he shouted, "A bunch of little brats. If I don't teach you a lesson, you'll think that the human race is afraid of you. Is the Mystic Armor clan really that great? It's best if the Mystic Armor King doesn't go out. The Tianzhu King has been watching him for 100 years. Come out and give it a try." Silence. At this moment, this human expert who had just entered the sun and moon was unbridled and unbridled. Jingping stepped on the armor a few times and scolded with a smile, "It's really hard. Take it back. I want to find someone to forge it. This thing is good stuff. After saying that, he picked up the armor that he had just thrown away. He glanced at the living beings in the city with a fierce look and grinned, "You bunch of little brats. Next time, in front of the people of my great Xia manor, stop your nonsense. If I don't kill you all in a few years, have you forgotten the pain? And you?" He pointed at the armored soldier and said, "Don't give the humans any medicine. Have you forgotten that when my dragon martial army slaughtered our way to the heaven-destroying city, my manor head killed your city lord with a single strike, causing him to cry out in fear?" Zheng Ping snorted coldly, looking at the tall manor of the city lord within the huge city, and shouted coldly, "My great Xia manor can still fight. When my manor is destroyed, we will act arrogantly again. As long as it's not destroyed, you will all become grandsons. What can you do about what I say? Grandsons." His words were harsh, but the entire city was silent. Zheng Ping laughed coldly, relying on the turtle shell of the ancient city to act arrogantly. "This ancient city doesn't belong to you. It's just a bunch of puppets. Believe it or not, my Longwu army will surround this heaven-destroying city, and unless we spend the rest of our lives cowering, we will kill them all." Killing intent soared into the sky. The sun and moon weren't absent in the city, but at this moment, even if they were stronger than him, none of them dared to say anything. Dragon Martial Guards. On the battlefield of the heavens, under the leadership of Xia Longwu, the peerless Killing Legion had once slaughtered their way out of the eastern Rift Valley, through the Sea of Desire Plains, and all the way to a few ancient cities. Fine, in the end, they weren't able to enter the city. After Xia Longwu entered the city, he left 3 days later and led his troops to retreat. However, more than 10 years ago, Xia Longwu almost killed the city lord of Heaven Destruction City with a single slash. This was something that many people knew. Now, the great Xia manor wasn't fighting anymore. However, everyone still didn't forget the Longwu army from back then. Back then, they killed Unrivaled, and before they entered Unrivaled, they were already given the title of Unrivaled Xia Longwu. The mountain and sea commander who was being scolded didn't say a word. It was as if he didn't hear anything. They weren't really afraid, but, even the residents of the ancient city couldn't stay in the city forever. Now that the war maniacs of the great Xia manor had arrived, there was no need to provoke them. At this moment, Suyu appeared and looked at Zheng Ping in surprise. "Damn! Zheng Ping! Such an overbearing person." In the great Xia manor, he felt really pitiful. He had been bullied by Wan Tianxing for many years. He heard that General Zhao, General Hu, Director Ji Hong, and Lord Xia were all bullying him. In any case, he was always the scapegoat. Lord Xiaohe was always the scapegoat. These two were professional scapegoats. The head of Zhanjiang College. Suyu had seen Zheng Ping before. When he saw him, he did not feel that he was overbearing at all. He only felt that this person was rather miserable. The great Xia manor was clearly dominated by warriors, yet Zhanjiang College had almost no reputation. The civilized college was known to all the races because of Yi Batian. Today, on the battlefield of the heavens, in front of this mysterious ancient city, he felt this person's overbearing manner. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1627. 1627 Chapter 369, Killing a Mountain and Sea for Fun 5. Heavily injured. He sensed it, and many people should have sensed it. The other party had killed a sun and moon. The sun and moon of the Mystic Armor clan was already very terrifying. However, he blocked the ancient city gate and cursed, but no one dared to say anything. Even the city lord of the 9th level sun and moon didn't seem to notice or care. In any case, he didn't make a sound and didn't appear. Zheng Ping didn't care about all this. He looked at Suyu with some doubts. Wasn't it Cui Lang? How did he become this kid? Are you the real Su Yu? Damn it, what the hell is going on? I can't even understand it. Alright, there's no need to understand it. He thought for a moment and quickly asked, where are Huangtang and Wuxia? They separated in the middle and ran to the right. Oh. Zheng Ping nodded and glanced at him. He said in surprise, you seem to be alright. Yes. Oh, then. Then I'm leaving. You go back alone. I still have things to do. I have to go save someone. Military orders are like mountains. I won't talk to you anymore. You go by yourself if you're alright. Be careful when you go back. There are a few suns and moons lying in ambush. It seems like. At this point, he sent a voice transmission, it seems like the little bastards of the celestial race are scheming. Take it easy. I really have things to do. If you die, it's the Daming Manor's business. If those two little fellows die, then it's my responsibility. Su Yu was speechless. You're so realistic. I'm no longer a member of the Great Xia Manor, so if I die, it has nothing to do with you, right? This old man is really realistic. Have you forgotten that I was the one who gave your family the pure origin technique? When your family is rich, don't you remember your feelings? Speaking up to this point, Su Yu quickly said, Grandpa Zheng, I just killed a few great demons. Why don't you take them with you? That guy took them as an entrance fee and took them away. Great demons? Zheng Ping was surprised. What great demons could you kill? He didn't have a ranking, so he really didn't know the exact situation. He rushed over, killed people, and left in a hurry. He still had to save people, so he really didn't have time to care about those things. At this moment, when he heard Su Yu say that he killed great demons, he didn't care too much. It didn't matter if it was flying or Ling Yun's. Unless it was the blood essence of a god or devil, he didn't care too much. Just as he was thinking about it, the Mountain Sea armored soldier had a strange expression on his face. With a wave of his hand, he threw the 3 corpses of the great demons that had just been taken away. He sighed and said, the Great Xia Mansion can enter the city for free. He was so direct. In this day and age, those who were unreasonable were afraid of those who were foolish, and those who were foolish were afraid of those who did not care about their lives. The Great Xia Mansion was that group of people who did not care about their lives. Su Yu shrugged his shoulders. I am from the Great Ming Mansion, forget it, I won't explain. I just don't want to benefit these fellows. As for Zheng Ping, he looked at the demons, then at Su Yu, and then at the corpse. He looked at it 7 or 8 times. He felt like he was hallucinating. Seeing Su Yu here was enough to surprise him. He was too busy and had things to do, so he couldn't care less. In the end. What was this? You killed it? Shanghai. He sensed the corpse of one of the demons, then looked at Su Yu and muttered, Shanghai. You're not Su Yu. Liar. His eyes turned cold. What trick did he use to fool me? I can't tell. This isn't Su Yu. F*CKU. Su Yu is the same as my grandson. My grandson's physical body has only been in the air for a few days. This kid is Su Yu, what? What should I say? It's not impossible. He had already won the battle against Shan Xiong. Shan Xiong was also very strong. At that time, he would have Ling Yun's combat strength. A few months had passed, it was hard to say if he was stronger. However, he still couldn't believe that Su Yu had killed Shanghai. F*CKU, I don't believe it. I definitely don't believe it. This is fake. As he cursed, he kept the corpses. Regardless of whether it was real or fake, the corpses were real. I want them. After he kept the corpses, he looked at Su Yu again. After a while, he said gloomily, my Yunhui lent you tens of thousands of merit points. Do you still remember? If it's Su Yu, then return the money. Su Yu smiled. 20,000 merit points for a cultivation technique. Isn't that enough? Furthermore, in the beginning, when Brother Zheng and I worked together, we received many benefits from the single divine literature department. When these words were said, Zheng Ping believed it. This was illogical. This kid really killed the mountains and seas. How terrifying. Do you want to leave together? He saw that Su Yu didn't seem to want to leave. He sent a voice transmission. Don't enter the ancient city. It's very complicated. The manor head went in once and came out heavily injured. He had no choice but to retreat. Back then, the manor head was in high spirits and wanted to overturn the ancient city and directly attack the Sea of Stars. In the end, he was blocked by the ancient city. After being heavily injured, he retreated back to the eastern Split Valley. Xiaolongwu. Overbearing. At this moment, Su Yu only had this thought. Truly overbearing. He directly attacked from the eastern Rift Valley to this side. He even wanted to break through the ancient city and directly attack the Sea of Stars. He wanted to attack the vicinity of the demon race's lair. This was the real ruthless person. If he didn't come to the heavenly battlefield, he might never know why the 10,000 races were afraid of Xiaolongwu attaining the Tao. Even Xiaolongwu, who hadn't attained the Tao, dared to lead his army to attack the ancient city. What would happen after attaining the Tao? Perhaps he would really be able to overturn the ancient city, slaughter his way to the Sea of Stars, and slaughter his way to the lair of the demi-humans. How ruthless! If he had not come to the heavenly battlefield, he would not have known that the head of the War Academy, who was like a grandson in the Great Xia Mansion, was also a ruthless person here. In that mansion, were those fellows who were not grandsons ruthless here? What about General Zhao? What about Chief Hu? Were these people also a deterrent here? As he thought about this, Su Yu transmitted his voice, I understand. Thank you, Grandpa Zheng. I have my own plans. You should go and save Huang Teng and the others first. They are too weak. They were almost crippled by Tian Duo. Zheng Ping's expression was strange. If you say that again, I want to strangle you to death. Su Yu smiled, but he turned into a gust of wind and disappeared on the spot again. Why should I leave? It wasn't easy to come to the celestial battlefield. I'm already at the city gate, why should I leave? But it's best to change my identity and enter the city. It's too conspicuous now. Of course, we'll see whether we can go through the main city gate or not. It might not even be possible to enter. Even Modwa is that difficult. Anyway, it's better not to leave with Zheng Ping. Seeing that he ran away, Zheng Ping sensed for a moment and complained for a while. His speed was fast, and he had many tricks up his sleeve. He didn't need to worry too much. Chui Lang, Su Yu. He somewhat understood what Lord Xia had said to him before he left. When he saw Chui Lang, he would save him if he could, but if he couldn't, he didn't need to care. That brat wouldn't die so easily. So, it was Su Yu, that brat. Marquis Xia must have known about it long ago, right? How terrifying. Killing a Shanghai realm expert. Zheng Ping's face was filled with vicissitudes of life and sadness. That grandson of his had been left far behind. He slapped his butt and ran to the right. Whatever, save Huang Teng and Wu Qi. These two were from the Great Xia Manor, and this brat wasn't from the Great Xia Manor. No matter what he did, this brat had many tricks up his sleeves. Even if he died, he might not necessarily die. Behind him, a group of creatures waited for him to leave before emerging. A mountain and sea expert sighed. The Great Xia Manor. The Dragon Martial Guards, a bunch of butchers. Luckily, he didn't say anything. Everyone knew very well. Luckily, the Great Xia Manor couldn't fight anymore, and they couldn't fight anymore. Luckily, Xiaolongwu was about to reach the Tao, and the experts of all races were watching him. Otherwise, according to the butcher's personality, he would be able to lead the dragon martial guards and the demon suppression army to break through the Arai plain and reach the vicinity of the ancient city. Now, only Zhengping had come. Everyone returned to their own homes and dispersed. Stop watching the show. If they continued watching, more people would die. Many people had died in this show. The black-armored clan was unlucky. Even the sun and moon guarding the city had been killed by Butcher Zheng. They couldn't afford to offend him. Wherever the sun and moon were, they were all mighty figures. They had been killed. There wasn't even a splash of water. As for Madhwa entering the city and Suyu leaving, these people could be talked about. These top geniuses of the strong clans weren't so easy to kill. On the contrary, they were easy to kill. It was better not to get involved in the disputes between them. At the same time, Suyu racked his brain. Who should I pretend to be to enter the city? Should I go through the main city gate? Anyway, he really wanted to go in and take a look. It would be a pity if he didn't enter the ancient city after coming to the battlefield of the heavens. What Madonna said wasn't wrong. Compared to killing people, entering the ancient city might be more interesting. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1628. 1628 Chapter 370 Rise of the Strong, Duanwuan Kong, 1 Gung requests to subscribe, 1. A few hours later, the sky darkened. Night fell. Suyu returned once more. This time, Suyu was no longer Suyu, but a middle-aged man who looked older. He swaggered toward the main city gate. Some of the ancient city guards glanced over, and very quickly, the Shanghai man who had disappeared returned. He glanced at Suyu and said, "I'm not charging you an entry fee, why bother?" Suyu looked at him in confusion. The Shanghai soldier said, "There aren't many humans who come to the ancient city. Those who go straight to the main city gates either don't understand, are extremely confident, or are idiots. During the day, there are people who want to go through the main city gates, but they're afraid of the number of people and trouble, so it's not good to go in." He couldn't be bothered to say the rest. Do you think everyone is an idiot? You swaggered through the main city gates at night. If you're not Suyu, then I'll stand on my head and eat shit. Suyu asked blankly, "Brother, what do you mean?" The mountain and sea armored soldier couldn't be bothered with him. The ancient city doesn't participate in such things. It doesn't get involved in the struggles of all races. Whether it's the human race or the gods and devils, they're all very powerful. The ancient city is a place where people struggle to survive. Some of our territories have been destroyed, and some of them have naturally been destroyed. With nowhere else to go, we joined the ancient city, hoping to find a place to survive. We do not wish to involve ourselves in the struggles of the races. Whether you are one or not, I just want to remind you that once you enter the ancient city, it may not be easy to leave. Suyu cursed inwardly. Am I that obvious? In this day and age, why aren't there a few idiots in the heavens battlefield? Just one guy can discover his identity. This doesn't make sense. Shanghai couldn't be bothered to say anything. How many outsiders would come to the ancient city in a year? During the day, this guy didn't leave with Zhengping. With a single look, he knew that this guy wouldn't give up. The attraction of the ancient city to geniuses was still huge. As expected, someone came at night. This was not Suyu, he could just die. He was indeed a genius. The best of the best. This kind of person would not give up on the secrets of the ancient city. The Shanghai man ignored him and continued, "When entering the ancient city, it's best to stay outside. Additionally, if you enter through the main city gate, you can normally stay for 7 to 10 days. When the time is up, it's best to leave. If you don't leave..." Suyu smiled. "If you don't leave, will you expel me?" "I won't." The man said indifferently, if you don't leave, you can either become a resident of the ancient city or, one day, when your luck is good, someone will collect your corpse. It was that simple. If you don't leave, then don't leave. Su Yu was surprised. Why was it so strange? It scared me. Then what exactly is the danger of the ancient city? The man didn't say a word. What is opportunity? Still, he didn't say a word. After I enter the city, can I walk around freely? Yes. This time, the man opened his mouth and said indifferently, as long as you don't act rashly and don't stay for more than 3 days, you can walk around freely and don't enter the inner rooms to spend the night. Su Yu nodded and said again, then why do you exist? He was very curious. What was the purpose of these people's existence? The man was silent for a moment and said indifferently, maintain order in the ancient city. Clean up the corpses. In addition, provide a resting place for the cultivators of the 10,000 races. This ancient city is only a resting place for geniuses like you. There's no need to stay here any longer. Then why do the races like the black armored race have experts stationed here? He was curious about this as well. The mountain and sea man was silent again, and after a moment, he said calmly, that's normal. There are opportunities in the ancient city, and everyone covets them. I'm just afraid that they don't have the ability. The races like the black armored race have their eyes on the opportunities here, but they don't have the strength to obtain them. They can only stay here and try to explore the laws of the ancient city. So that was the case. Then the city lord of heaven destruction is a neutral. He could not reply to that. The Shanghai man ignored him. Was the city lord a neutral? Who knew? In the heavens battlefield, it was too difficult to find a neutral. Su Yu asked again, which race is the city lord of heaven destruction from? I don't know. The Shanghai man said coldly, are you going to enter the city or not? No, I have to ask. After I enter, will you surround me and kill me? It's in accordance with the rules of the ancient city. Naturally, no one will dare to kill you. The man said coldly, in Heaven Destruction City, do not use force, do not destroy anything, and leave 3 days later. Everything will be fine, or else you will have to bear the consequences. Then what are the advantages and disadvantages of being a resident? You will know after you try. The man said teasingly. He finally had a special tone. You want to know? Then try. Su Yu cursed inwardly. I'm not going to try. I'm going to enter the city. He walked towards the main entrance. There was a slight slope at the city entrance. Just as he walked up the small slope, Su Yu's yuan qi exploded. The powerful pressure made his body sink. It was as if a huge mountain was pressing down on him. Not far away, the man crossed his arms and looked at him. He said indifferently, I've been here for many years and have seen countless geniuses enter the gate. Although I've never walked before, I know that one can enter the gate after taking 99 steps. Most of those who enter the gate will have some gains. Many experts and geniuses will eventually become the overlords of myriad worlds. Many people from your human race have come before. Yi Batian, Xia Longgu, Zhou Polong, Zhou Patian, Zhu Tiandao, Qin Zhen, Niu Baidao, myriad sage. He spoke of many people and said indifferently, these people either made it through, or they were just one step away. Guess who the easiest one is? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1629. 1629 Chapter 370 Rise of the Strong, Duan Wuan Kong, Wan Gung requests to subscribe, 2. Su Yu was pressured so much that he could not even take a step forward. However, at this moment, he was still a little curious. He panted and asked, who? Wan Tianxing. Su Yu was stunned. Impossible. What about the 5th generation? He he did not walk as fast as Wan Tiansheng. Perhaps he was hiding his strength. Perhaps, his talent is different. Nonsense. The fifth generation's talent was inferior to the myriad sage. Nonsense. In the eyes of all civilized masters, including the warriors, the fifth generation's talent was, of course, top-notch. If it wasn't for the fact that they were determined to become civilized masters, they would have long become invincible. Myriad sage, stop fooling around. Those who weren't famous would only be famous in the Great Xia Mansion. To be honest, in the entire human realm, they weren't as famous as Niu Baidao. This sixth-generation prefect of the Great Xia Civilization Academy was very different from the previous 5 generations. The expert from the mountain and sea realm didn't say much. If he left quickly, it might not mean anything. However, he remembered the 10,000 heavenly saints of the human race very clearly. As for that person, he had stayed in the ancient city for 10 days before leaving. He could be considered one of the people who had stayed the longest. Of course, at that time, the 10,000 heavenly saints' fame was average. He had also been on the heaven hunting list, but his fame was still average. When he was at his peak, he had entered the top 10 of the yellow list. After that, there was no news. After he passed his age, he would automatically fall off the list. There were too many people who came later, so there was no need for him to pass his age. If you did not improve for a long time, you would naturally not be a genius when you were older. Su Yu did not think about it anymore. Wan Tiansheng, old ghost Wan, had actually walked the fastest. How strange. The immense pressure caused his lifeblood to explode and his yuan qi to explode. Very good. I like this feeling. Torture me. Cast body. His physical body circulated and the 72 forge iron revolved. The heaven yuan qi was absorbed by him. Su Yu, who had his back bent, slowly straightened his back. The pressure was too great. Just as he straightened his back, layers upon layers of pressure continued to press down on him, forcing him to bend his back again. This time, even the mountain and sea man was puzzled. Su Yu, was this really Su Yu? What was going on? He couldn't take a single step out. It was strange. It was really strange. Not only him, even the armored soldiers around him were all extremely curious. Was this the genius of the heaven role, Su Yu? Was the commander mistaken? At this moment, even the mountain and sea commander felt that he was overthinking things. This person was actually not Su Yu. He had misunderstood. In his opinion, Su Yu was still a genius of the heaven role. There was still hope for him to enter. Furthermore, it was very big. Even if he ran into trouble, it would be 90 steps later. Now, it was only the first step. At this moment, no one knew, including Su Yu himself. He was extremely depressed. What was going on? He did not know that the little hairy ball in his sea of will, which he had neglected, had a vague feeling. He opened his eyes to take a look. It was a little strange. After thinking about it, he continued to close his eyes and cultivate. There was still willpower overflowing from Su Yu's sea of will. Su Yu had forgotten about it. In fact, he was not walking alone. Instead, he was carrying an ancient Lingyun clan member on his back. He had really forgotten about it. A double suppressive force. The ancient Lingyun clan was also a peerless heaven's favorite. At this moment, Su Yu was equivalent to bearing double the pressure of an ordinary genius. The pressure had doubled. This was not a joke. Originally, such a huge pressure could only be felt after walking for 30 steps. But now, Su Yu had already felt such a huge pressure with just one step. It was already like this at the start. For a moment, he didn't expect it to be so difficult. In his sea of will, little hairy ball didn't care about this. Was he a human? No. Was he a living being? No. In any case, he didn't even treat himself as a living being. What did it have to do with him treating himself as a genius? All the pressure had been carried away by Suyu. Why would he care about that? At this moment, the distant mountains and seas began to doubt themselves. Am I too confident? I've mistaken you for someone else. This is definitely not Suyu. Otherwise, how could he walk like this? He hasn't even taken a single step. If I walk, I might even be able to take a step. Damn it. Am I that weak? He had seen how Madwa walked before. It wasn't that slow. When it started, it was still walking very quickly. F***ck. I can't be that weak. It's impossible. This was a huge blow to Suyu. Boom. Yuan Qi burst out as the 360 acupoints formed a cycle. Suyu let out a low roar as his body glowed with golden light. Leave. With a low shout and a boom, Suyu took his first step. And at that moment, there were people passing by the city gates. They took a glance, curled their lips, and could not help but laugh. Where did this hothead come from? Even though many people had died from mocking others during the day, the person who had spoken wasn't afraid. The person who had just left wasn't afraid at all. What was the point of walking one step at a time like this? I can do it. At this moment, Suyu wasn't in the mood to bother with him anymore. He gritted his teeth and beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. It was as if he had returned to the past. It was as if he had returned to a dream. It was as if he had returned to that day when he was powerless to struggle. He had sought help from others, but no one paid attention to him. He was unwilling. He was also unwilling. He might not have said it, but he was still very satisfied with being able to enter the heaven role. Did you see that? I, Suyu, am a genius. Even if I don't have the golden atlas, I am still a genius. But at this moment, his confidence, his pride, and everything about him were all somewhat destroyed. Suyu gritted his teeth. I don't believe that I am not that useless. If Madwa can walk in, then I can. Even if my aptitude is really bad, I can still walk in. I won't lose my confidence. I won't. I still have people to save, people to help, and people to kill. How can a mere city gate stop me? Rumble. The battle intent surged. At this moment, the battle intent was burning. The divine inscription of the word war was on the verge of advancing. Suyu didn't care. He wanted to continue moving forward. The increasing pressure was suffocating him. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1630. 1630 Chapter 370 Rise of the Strong, Duanwuan Kong, Wan Gung requests to subscribe, 3. In the distance, that mountain and sea really looked a little strange. What the hell? This person's battle intent was so strong that he felt that it shouldn't be like this. How could it be so difficult? Beast Tamer. That wasn't to the extent. Beast Tamer's beast taming was hidden in the beast taming space, so it wouldn't affect anything. Did this person carry a demonic beast on him? No. If he did, under normal circumstances, he would also be expelled when entering the city gate. If he wasn't expelled, it meant that there were no external objects. Yes, there were no external objects. What was the little hairy ball? Even the laws of heaven and earth weren't easy to calculate. The moment it entered Suyu's sea of will, it was counted as Suyu's divine language. It was an ancient race's divine language, a strange ancient race's divine language. Divine script naturally could not be counted as an external object. Suyu had forgotten that the mountain and sea man did not understand, and little hairy ball did not take it seriously. Therefore, at this moment, Suyu's explosive power was extremely strong, and his talent was not weak. However, he was still in an extremely difficult situation. Anyone who saw this scene would wonder if the person in front of them was really old. His talent was average, and although his battle intent was not bad, it was not enough. If he did not meet the standards, it would still be difficult for him to move forward. Even the middle-aged man from the mountain and sea realm could not understand. The other armored soldiers, including some passers-by, naturally could not understand as well. They could not even be bothered to watch the show. Usually, it was not like there were no people who came to experiment and walk around. There was nothing to watch. It was so difficult to walk, and they would be finished after 10 steps. It was a waste of time. I'm not that weak. I'm a genius. Even if I'm not, I'm still a genius. Suyu roared in his heart. He was not convinced. Was having good talent a genius? Wrong. Having strong combat strength was. What was talent? I don't need it. I only want to be strong, incomparably strong. No matter how strong the suppressive force is, I will break you. F***ck, even a door is bullying me. Pine. Taking a step forward, his body's yuan qi exploded. Suyu rapidly absorbed his willpower. He treated this as a form of tempering. I will rapidly become stronger. No one can stop me. His battle intent surged as the divine runes of the war character vibrated non-stop. If the battle continued, no one would be able to stop my advance. Not humans, not the myriad races, no one. Boom. The divine runes advanced. Another tier 4 divine rune appeared. Suyu, who was filled with battle intent, had his body become stronger as well. He continued forward. With a boom, he took another step forward as sweat dripped from his body like rain. What was this? It was nothing. His fighting spirit is so high. This person, how could he take 5 steps like this? It can't be that bad. Even if he's a late bloomer, it can't be that bad, right? The mountain and sea man really couldn't understand what was going on. He paid a bit more attention to Suyu. There was a high chance that this person wasn't Suyu. Although he felt that his previous guess was correct, now he was denying himself. 6 steps, 7 steps. Suyu was extremely determined. He walked step by step, and his physical body was constantly strengthening. When he reached the 9th step, with a rumble, golden light shone brightly. Physical body 15 cast. Suyu's strength was even stronger. He straightened his back. Just because he wasn't as good as you today, it didn't mean that he would never be as good as you. Madonna, you can walk in, I can too. At the same time. In the city lord's mansion. In the huge hall, the stone statue opened its eyes for the second time today. Right outside the hall, there was another hall. That was the residence of the current city lord, the 9th layer of the sun and moon. However, now that the stone statue opened its eyes, the 9th layer of the sun and moon didn't know anything and didn't notice anything. At this moment, when the stone statue opened its eyes, the image of the city gate was reflected in its eyes. Suyu's original appearance. Not only that, it also reflected some things, such as the small ball that was faintly resting on Suyu's head. The stone statue seemed to be thinking about something, as if it was judging something. After a long time, an inaudible voice sounded, "In this world, there is still such an idiot who brought the ancient devouring god clan, whose cultivation base is higher than his, into the city." It was really an eye-opener. It had never been heard of before. The more talented one was, the stronger the pressure was. It was prepared for a genius. And this genius had brought the ancient devouring god clan, one of the few in the world, along with 2 top-tier geniuses to pass the test. It was fine, but all the pressure was on this human. If he wasn't an idiot, what was he? It was an eye-opener. The stone sculpture, which had existed since ancient times, didn't know what to say at this moment. There was actually someone so stupid. To think that under such circumstances, he could still take 9 steps. This was already considered not bad. Very good. If it wasn't for the ancient race member of the devouring god race, perhaps he would have already taken 40 to 50 steps. In the next moment, something appeared in the eyes of the stone sculpture. A stone tablet. A multi-divine language battle technique stele. It still exists. The stone sculpture muttered. It was rare for him to speak a few words today. After a moment, the stone sculpture saw a lot of divine text, but he didn't pay much attention to it. Soon, he saw a huge hammer. He was slightly surprised. The development of the human race's divine text wasn't too bad. It was actually a bit more powerful than he had imagined. In the next moment, he saw the acupuncture points in his body, and he was slightly surprised. After the great apocalypse, he actually is still able to cast the body of the universe. The stone sculpture was a little surprised. How did this person do it? Cast the body of the universe. No wonder his physical body seemed to be much more mellow. It was just that his sea of consciousness was a little lacking. However, he could vaguely see through it. Was this the awakening of the 5 elements divine art? Interesting. Today, he actually saw a very interesting fellow. Except for his low IQ, the others were all pretty good. In any era, he would be a peerless heaven's favorite. Iron-eating 72 cast. The stone sculpture was surprised again. He saw Su Yu's cast body. Was that Iron-eating 72 cast? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1631. 1631 Chapter 370, Rise of the Strong, Duanwuan Kong, One Gung requests subscription, 4. It actually had a connection with the ancient Iron Eater race. The next moment, the stone sculpture saw something again. In Su Yu's heart, something that Su Yu had never discovered before, and that few people had discovered before, was a small person sitting cross-legged. Right at this moment, the small person sitting cross-legged suddenly opened its eyes. It pierced through space and time and looked at the sculpture. The sculpture was also looking at him. A small person and a sculpture were looking at each other. At this moment, the small person seemed to pierce through the long river of space and time and was about to walk towards the sculpture when the sculpture suddenly said, "You are not welcome." The small person stopped and said loudly, "I saw you decades ago. At that time, I came. Do you still remember the master of the ancient city?" "Yes." The stone sculpture did not deny it, and said again, "You are not welcome." The small being smiled. "No offense. I was awakened by the master of the ancient city. The master of the ancient city has been asleep for countless years, but today, he is awake. It is surprising." The stone sculpture looked at the small being again, and after a while, it said, "Leave this place, or, continue sleeping." "Okay." The small being did not say anything, and retreated back to Su Yu's heart. The moment it retreated, the small being disappeared, and it continued to sleep in the heart. Su Yu did not know, and no one saw it. Only the stone sculpture saw it. The stone statue took a look at the heart and suddenly closed its eyes, not looking at Su Yu anymore. The stone statue saw the mysterious part of this person. However, there was an expert guarding the heart of this person. There was no need to look at it anymore. It had already awoken the other party. At the same time. Human Realm. Great Xia Civilization Academy, Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Wan Tianxing suddenly jumped up and looked at the endless void. His expression changed slightly. After a long while, he muttered, "This is, encountering an expert. Very, very powerful. He really could cause trouble." It didn't seem like he had erupted or fought. Was he just encountering an expert? He had been seen through. Wan Tianxing frowned and walked out of the Heart Cultivation Pavilion. Silently, he floated outside the heart cultivation pavilion. Walking through the void, he walked step by step. No one could see him, no one could see him. As he walked, he arrived at the top of Hong Tan's Wentan Research Center. Seeing Hong Tan lecturing him, he smiled, stepped into the air, and continued forward. A moment later, he arrived at the top of Yuan Qingdong's villa. Looking down, he shook his head, he continued forward. Walking out of the academy, he arrived at the Xia clan's residence. After sweeping through the area, he landed in Lord Xia's courtyard and took some food. They were all quite delicious. As he continued walking, he arrived at Nanyuan. It didn't take long. After taking a look at the Suyu clan, he shook his head again. It was a mess. In the surroundings, many experts had a sun and moon beside them that pierced through him, directly ignoring him. The 10,000 heavenly saints sighed. Was this a calamity that caused the southern origin? He glanced in the direction of the Great Ming Palace, but didn't look back. He turned around and walked towards the Great Xia Academy. Very quickly, he returned to the academy. In the secret realm, a huge dragon was lying in a river. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked up, his huge eyes were filled with doubt and shock. Who was it? Very quickly, this feeling disappeared. This white dragon who was at the 7th level of the Sun-Moon realm shook his head and shook his head. He continued to lie there. It was fine, his senses were wrong. As for the 10,000 heavenly saints, he returned to the heart cultivation pavilion. He closed his eyes again. That fellow, who did he meet in the heavenly battlefield? He was a little uneasy. What kind of expert could make him feel uneasy? Did he need to start the plan in advance? It was very troublesome. If he had known earlier, he would have left this kid alone. But at this moment, Suyu still didn't know anything. He didn't know that at that moment, a communication that pierced through the heavens was completed silently. No one else knew. He did not care about this. Suyu's physical body had completed 15 casts. At this moment, he was no longer troubled by the pressure. Very good, I need this kind of pressure. If you can't crush me, I will become stronger. Adore, you bully me too. I lack everything, not patience, not tenacity. It's just pressure. Can it crush me? If it can't crush me to death, then I can be strong. Crush me to death. It's not like I haven't died before. It felt great. Not long after he left Daming Manor, he had already completed casting 7 times. When he left, he had only cast 8 times. Adding on the fact that he had completed 3 casts in the beginning, he had actually only completed 5 casts in 3 months in Daming Manor, he had only completed 5 casts. He had left Daming Manor on May 18th. Until now, it had only been July 7th after today. In less than 50 days, Suyu had completed 7 casting sessions. On average, he had completed 1 casting every 7 days. As expected, if he did not go out, his cultivation speed would not increase. Only when he was under pressure would he have motivation. After seeing so many geniuses and experts, his horizons had increased. Bai Feng had once said that if one stood differently, one would see differently. One had to compete with geniuses. One should never lower oneself. One had to see the bigger world and the higher mountains and seas. Even though the current Bai Feng. Suyu felt that he was very weak, his words still made sense. He walked step by step. His willpower exploded. Even though the pressure was great, Suyu wasn't afraid. 15 steps, 18 steps. Boom. His willpower also increased once again. Under the compression, he directly stepped into the 2nd level of Ling Yun. Suyu once again used his small hammer to attack crazily. If I don't advance, why would I advance? My physical body didn't follow up. I don't want to advance. Rumble. The small hammer continued to compress. Coupled with the pressure at the city gate, very soon, the second level of Ling Yun that had already advanced was once again compressed back into the first level of Ling Yun. Su Yu wasn't in a hurry. Let's talk about it when the physical body comes up. The difference between willpower and the physical body had better not be too big. 9 steps was a hurdle. 27 steps. Su Yu's face was flushed red. His muscles and bones felt like they were about to be crushed. He didn't care about all this. The flesh regeneration technique from the Celestials was constantly consuming heaven origin chi to strengthen his muscles and bones. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1632. 1632 Chapter 370 The Rise of the Strong, Dragon Boat Festival, Wangenkyu Subscription, 5. Today, he has to go into town. In 36 steps, a divine rune is naturally outlined. Press. Pressure, pressure, pressure. The god of suppression. Su Yu has it. God's word against the enemy. Rumble A, the god text concussion, the pressure weakened a lot. This is Su Yu's 24th god text. He had received some benefits. In his sea of will, that little hairy ball was also a bit strange. It seemed to have grown a bit stronger for no reason. It was really strange. Forget it. Regardless of all this, it was normal for his strength to increase during sleep. Su Yu continued walking. The sky was almost bright. At this moment, the mountain and sea man's eyes were extremely strange. Just who was this person? Every time he felt that the other party couldn't take it anymore, the other party would explode again. He fell down and got up once more. In the entire night, he had already taken 54 steps, and he was halfway through. He had seen too many geniuses before. Some of them had successfully walked in, such as Madhwa, and some of them were extremely difficult. They had given up halfway through, while some had given up after taking a few steps. However, just like this fellow, they had been suppressed to the point of exploding, unwilling to leave. What were they trying to achieve? What was he after? He wanted to improve his strength. Su Yu suddenly realized that he had fallen in love with this door. Very good. When he reached the 63rd step, the 16 casting that he thought would take a long time to complete was completed at this moment. All in all, he could be considered to have reached the peak of the second level of the soaring heavens realm. This was the case for the physical body realm. At this moment, the strength of his physical body's acupuncture points had broken through 8,000 acupuncture points in all directions. At this moment, he didn't consume the mountain and sea blood essence, but used the strength divine script. In addition to the half-opened yang acupuncture points, Su Yu felt that it was already close to the strength of 10,000 acupuncture points. Furthermore, there was an additional divine text. The greater the pressure, the faster the improvement of this pressure character. At this point, his divine text had already reached tier 2. This door was very good. I like it. As for how fast Madhwa walked, that was his business. What did it have to do with me? I just like to walk slowly. There were still 36 steps left. When Su Yu's physical body completed the 16 steps, his strength became stronger and stronger. The pressure also became greater and greater, but he did not care. Bigger, the greater the better. As long as you can't kill me, I'll crush you to death. The immortal flesh regeneration technique was very useful, but it consumed a lot of money. The consumption of heaven yuan qi was too great. Su Yu still had quite a bit of heaven yuan qi before, close to 500 portions. But now, he had only completed 2 casting, and only about 400 portions of heaven yuan qi was left. The expenditure was too huge. 100 portions, 2 casting sessions. Su Yu previously thought that 100 portions could be completed at least 5 times. However, because his physical body had been crushed, he had no choice but to absorb a large amount of heaven origin chi to repair his physical body. Continue. There are still 36 more steps. Su Yu gritted his teeth. Casting twice in one night was a huge opportunity. He could not give up. Even if he could not enter the city, it was nothing. This was an opportunity. Indeed, the heavenly battlefield was full of opportunities. His willpower had also become stronger. Although he was said to be at the first level of Ling Yun, in reality, Su Yu felt that an ordinary third-level Ling Yun would be able to destroy his sea of consciousness with a single hammer strike. This was a civilized master. For those at the 5th or 6th level of Ling Yun, if one hammer strike was not enough, 3 hammers would be enough to kill him. As for those at the later stage of Ling Yun, he would have to hammer them for a while longer. In short, at this moment, Su Yu felt that even if he did not consume the mountain and sea blood essence and his strength exploded, there was not much difference between him and when he killed Lei Ju. To be more precise, there was not much difference. The improvement in his strength was something he could clearly feel. 66 steps, 70 steps. There were too few people in the ancient city. Furthermore, Su Yu had already stepped into the city cave. Even if there were people passing by, they didn't pay much attention to him. During the day, almost no one saw him. If anyone saw him, they didn't want to meddle in other people's business. This was because Su Yu seemed to be walking with too much difficulty. Anyone who looked at him would think that this guy wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. 90 steps. When Su Yu reached 90 steps, the mountain and sea man outside let out a soft sigh. This guy gave him a feeling that he was even scarier than Modwa. Talent, he couldn't say. Strength, he couldn't say. However, that unyielding perseverance seemed to be on the verge of falling again and again. He quickly got up and continued to move forward. This made him feel a little shaken. This kind of guy, whether it was Su Yu or not, did it matter? Was it very important? If this guy didn't die, it was best not to provoke him. He was a very scary guy. There were many geniuses who had passed through the main city gate. After a year, there were still 3 to 5 of them. After so many years, there were too many of them. Very few people gave men such a big shock. It was true. From the first step, he raised his expectations again and again. You can walk 10 steps, walk 20 steps, walk 30 steps. When Su Yu walked 90 steps, he no longer expected anything. This guy was very dangerous, so don't provoke him. The sky turned dark again. One day and one night. When Su Yu took the last step, with a bang, he collapsed on the ground. Sweat poured down like rain, instantly soaking the ground. At this moment, his physical body was also undergoing some changes. The moment Modwa walked out, he could easily turn his head and talk to Su Yu, but Su Yu couldn't move. The difference was obvious. But at this moment, the mountain and sea man, who had an ordinary attitude before, walked over from the side door. He took a step forward and said in a low voice, "Do you need help?" "No." The man nodded and retreated. He watched as Su Yu slowly got up and began to struggle. Suddenly, he said, "If you're looking for a house, there's a difference. You're a human, so go look for a human house. In this ancient city, houses are different. If you see a human house, you might be able to sense it." Su Yu was surprised. He glanced at him. "You're not trying to trick me, right?" The man lowered his head. "Believe it or not, it's up to you. Also, I want to remind you not to go to the city lord's manor. The city lord doesn't like humans, because of Xiaolong Wu." Su Yu understood, nodded, and said, "Thank you." The mountain and sea man didn't say anything, and silently retreated. Looking at Su Yu's waning steps as he walked into the city, he sighed in his heart. Another expert was about to rise up. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1633. 1633 Chapter 371 Soul of the Ancient City 1. Walking on the ancient limestone streets, there were houses on both sides, and no one was around. It was very quiet. The huge ancient city actually did not have many people. At this moment, it was already night time. Behind them, the Shanghai man said, "It's best not to go out at night. Quickly find a room to stay in, or else, if something happens at night, you will have to bear the consequences. Try not to go out at night." Did that mean they could go out? Su Yu was a little confused. Furthermore, the soldiers were still guarding the city gate. Were they okay? What about you guys? Su Yu turned around and asked. "We." The Shanghai man said, "We won't be in danger. We are part of this ancient city." Su Yu was silent. He seemed to have understood something, so he didn't ask any more questions and continued forward. On both sides, there were many houses. Some of them looked dilapidated, and even the doors and windows were showing signs of damage. However, Su Yu didn't dare to try. He didn't want to destroy the buildings here, and he couldn't do so either. This was what the man from the mountain and sea tribe had said. Furthermore, if he destroyed them, he would be in danger. Outside all the houses, there was a wooden sign. There was an owner, or there was no owner. On the wooden sign, there was the information of the owner. As Su Yu was walking, the door of one of the houses suddenly opened. In the next moment, a jade talisman was thrown out. Su Yu was shocked. He thought that he had been attacked, so he quickly retreated. In the next moment, the jade talisman fell to the ground. Su Yu looked carefully. There were some bloodstains on the jade talisman. His heart moved slightly. Was this to become a resident of the ancient city? He looked at the open door and revealed a pair of eyes. It was a huge elk. Upon seeing Su Yu, the other party was shocked and quickly retreated. He looked at Su Yu with some fear. In the next moment, he slammed the door shut. Su Yu was slightly stunned. He quickly understood. Could it be that the other party thought that I took this jade talisman? If this jade talisman was thrown out, there should be someone who would take it away, right? The crucial point was, if I took it away, would the other party still be able to become a resident of the ancient city? With some doubts, Su Yu's heart stirred. If the other party threw out the jade talisman and I took it away, after 3 consecutive days, the other party thought that he had become a resident and could live here permanently. In the end, if he didn't, wouldn't he be finished? If he didn't leave after 3 days, he would be in danger. Wouldn't that mean that he was doomed? You thought that you were a resident, but in reality, you weren't. How miserable would that be? He glanced at the jade talisman on the ground and really wanted to test it out. This jade talisman had been thrown out so casually. Could he pick it up? Just as he was thinking, Su Yu's heart trembled. The Calamity Divine text was throbbing intensely. It was very intense. Su Yu was shocked and hurriedly retreated several hundred meters. The Calamity word was still pulsating, but it was slightly better. It wasn't as powerful as before. And at this moment, at the place where the jade talisman had been thrown, a shadow appeared. A completely black shadow. Under the dark night, the shadow walked step by step towards the jade talisman. Reaching out, the blood-stained jade talisman was caught by the shadow. The jade talisman quickly disappeared. At this moment, the shadow carved something on the wooden tablet at the door. A moment later, the shadow was about to leave. Su Yu's heart was shaken. What was this thing? The sensing jade did not show any light spots. The distance should not be more than a kilometer. Could it be invincible? Impossible. A shadow that came to collect the jade talisman was invincible. Are you kidding me? Just as he was thinking, the Calamity Divine text jumped again. Su Yu quickly fled. At this moment, the shadow suddenly turned around and looked at him. A dark light shot out from its dark eyes as it headed straight for Su Yu. Su Yu was greatly alarmed as he felt an intense sense of danger. He continued to flicker with his instincts. Under the night sky, he was the only person on the entire street. The sound of air being torn apart was very loud. However, at this moment, no living creature opened the doors of the houses on both sides to look at him. In the ancient city, everyone knew a principle. It was best not to go out at night. Even if the outside world was turned upside down, it was best not to go out to watch the fun. Otherwise, the one who died might be you. In the ancient city, those who dared to walk around at night were either brainless or powerful experts. No matter what happened, if you went out at night, you might encounter danger. Su Yu's 5-element escape art had been unleashed to its limits. Unfortunately, there was no way for him to escape here, and the ground was impenetrable. This was very scary. If the floating earth spirit came here, it would be easily hacked to death. Su Yu continued to escape, but the dark light followed him like a shadow. The shadow had already disappeared, and the enemy only left this light. Just as Su Yu was escaping, the Shanghai city soldier at the city gate also sensed the movement. He turned his head to look into the city. Su Yu had not gone far, and he had also seen the black light that was chasing Su Yu. His expression changed slightly, and he quickly sent a message, "Quickly find an empty house to hide. This is the light of death in the ancient city. If you get it, the dead spirits of the ancient city will always haunt you, and the aura of death is thick." Su Yu was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. "I didn't do anything. I was just walking away when the elk suddenly threw out a jade talisman. I didn't expect to encounter such trouble. What the hell?" The black light behind me was indeed lifeless. From the words of the Mountain Sea armored warrior, it sounded more like a symbol. Dead spirit, the dead spirit of the ancient city, was it referring to the shadow? Lifeless aura. No wonder the sensing jade couldn't sense it. It wasn't that the other party was too strong, but that the other party wasn't even a living being, so the sensing jade couldn't sense it. This thing was too dangerous. If it wasn't for the Calamity Divine Text's warning. If Su Yu had stopped at the jade talisman just now, he might have been killed by the shadow. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1634. 1634 Chapter 371 Soul of the Ancient City 2. Su Yu quickly checked and found a small house beside him. The wooden sign indicated that it was ownerless. Su Yu quickly rushed toward the small house. With a bang, he knocked open the door of the small house. Su Yu quickly entered and closed the door. At this moment, the aura of death behind him also slammed into the door with a bang. A weak aura of death flowed into Su Yu's closed arm through the gap of the door. The door closed, and the other aura of death disappeared. However, a strand of aura of death was entangled on Su Yu's arm and quickly devoured his flesh and blood. Su Yu was shocked. He couldn't care about anything else. With a low shout, a large amount of heavenly yuan qi appeared. Then, he activated the Immortal's Life Force Activation Technique and activated the Immortal's Flesh and Blood Regeneration Technique. The Heaven Yuan Qi and the Death Qi wrapped around his arm. They continued to collide and wear each other down. It continued for nearly half an hour before Su Yu suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. He waved his arm and it was completely undamaged. The Death Qi had been worn down by him. However, the amount of Heaven Yuan Qi that he had used up was very terrifying. There was a total of 10 portions. It was only a tiny amount of Death Qi. Su Yu was extremely afraid. If he was hit by the entire Death Qi, his flesh and blood would probably be devoured in an instant. What the hell is that? Su Yu's heart palpitated. That thing, the ancient city's undead. F***CK. I just entered the city and it's already treating me like this. How inhumane. If I don't have Heaven Yuan Qi and I can't activate my life force, won't I be finished? If I'm surrounded by this death aura, it's even possible that I'll be sucked dry of my flesh and blood. How terrifying. Suyu felt that this damned place was very dangerous as soon as he arrived, and he finally experienced it. He did not know if the aura of death outside had disappeared, but Suyu did not dare to open the door again. He looked at his arm and touched his chin. He was deep in thought. Not to mention, the aura of death was very powerful when it devoured flesh and blood, however. The Heaven Yuan Qi and the aura of death seemed to be at odds. When the two clashed, it sped up the forging of the body. Aura of death. Heaven Yuan Qi. Suyu touched his chin again. It was too dangerous. Forget it, it was better not to provoke it. Just now, a thought flashed through his mind. Should he go out and get some more death qi to study? It seemed to be very powerful. However, this was just a random death qi from the shadow. If he met that shadow again, he would be in big trouble. It would be more terrifying if he were to get a few hundred streams of death qi from him. After suppressing the incident just now, Suyu finally had the time to size up the house that he had entered. It was very dark. Suyu did not hesitate and directly took out a huge luminous pearl. Actually, it was not a luminous pearl. It was just a type of material used to forge weapons. This time, the entire house lit up. Looking at it, Suyu was speechless. It was really a small house. It was very small, about 50 square meters. There was a distinction between inside and outside. He was outside, so it should be considered the living room. There was a half-open door inside, so it should be considered a bedroom. Suyu could see it clearly. It was only this big. There was a living room and a bedroom. There was nothing else. There was no kitchen, no study. This was a house near the city gate. It should be the kind of house in the slums. It was also in the 36th ring. It was normal to have nothing. At that moment, the door of the small house was tightly shut. In the living room, there was nothing but a broken wooden table and a few wooden chairs. Suyu walked past the half-opened inner door and entered the bedroom. There was only a wooden bed. It was empty. It was too simple and crude. Are there any opportunities in this place? Suyu remembered that Madonna had said that there were some opportunities in these houses. Were there? He looked around again and again, but he did not feel anything. There were no opportunities. Or could it be that the 36th ring road was too rubbish? The house in this place should have been lived in many times, right? Even if there was a chance, it was gone now, right? Suyu looked at the shabby and dirty wooden bed. Was he going to spend the night here? The small house did not even have a window. Suyu despised it. But outside, he did not know if the aura of death was still there. He did not dare to rashly go out. Was he going to waste a day in this shabby house? Even if he entered through the main city gate, he could only stay here for 7 or 8 days. Was he going to stay here for the night? Suyu was still thinking about whether he should go out or not. At this moment, at the city gate, a few armored soldiers were looking at the small house. One of them said softly, "Commander, he's dead, right? It seems like all the dead people in the ancient city have entered the house. Then he should be dead. Why don't we go take a look and see if there's anyone there? If there's no one there, then let's go in and collect their corpses." As the armored soldiers spoke in hushed tones, the commander of the mountain and sea tribe also looked over, frowning slightly. He had thought highly of the other party. Just as he had said that experts would rise to power, the other party had already died. Such luck was truly out of this world. Coincidentally, a living being prepared to become a resident threw out a jade talisman that was stained with his own blood. Coincidentally, the dead in the ancient city had come out to collect the jade talisman. Of course, this also had something to do with that fellow's arrival. Under normal circumstances, he would have fled the moment he saw the jade talisman. On the other hand, that fellow actually stayed there for a while. It was one thing for him to stay there, but he was still spying on the undead not too far away. The ancient city's death ray was tracking the undead. Perhaps, a portion of it had infiltrated the house. If that fellow were to be infected by the death ray, even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. Even if he managed to survive, the death ray would remain in his body, and it wouldn't be long before he would attract the attention of the undead. If he were to encounter the undead in the ancient city, he would be doomed. Of course, he could leave the city. However, no matter which ancient city he went to next time, he would be targeted by the undead, and he would be completely cut off from the ancient city. Furthermore, the deathly aura would also cause those who were infected to gradually die. You're tuning into the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1635. 1635 Chapter 371 Soul of the Ancient City 3. The man of the mountains and seas questioned himself time and time again today. I thought he was Su Yu, but he might not be. I thought he was a strong person rising up. The moment he arrived, he was targeted by the undead. What was there to rise up for? I thought he was going to die. Would this guy still be alive? How complicated. The man shook his head and did not say anything. There was no one else who could be so lucky. He didn't even know what to say. We'll go and take a look at him at dawn, the man said. Even if it was them, they shouldn't run around under the night sky. If they waited at the city gate, the undead wouldn't come here or look for them. However, if they ran into them after entering the city, it would be troublesome. It was best not to go there at night. The other armored soldiers nodded as well. Then, they would go and collect the corpses at dawn. At this moment, in the room, Su Yu had been waiting for a while. He looked around, but there was nothing. Staying here for an entire night? Wasn't it too much of a waste? Death ray. Su Yu muttered. Death ray was indeed very dangerous, but he knew the cultivation technique of the immortals, so he had heaven's origin energy. It seemed like it could be neutralized. Of course, it could only neutralize a small amount of death ray. If there was too much, he would be in danger. In other words, if the immortal encountered the undead here, the prerequisite was that the other party had sufficient heaven yuan qi, so the danger was not too great. The death ray outside the door is gone, right? Su Yu still wanted to take a look. The next time he came, he might have to go through the main door, which would waste a lot of time. More importantly, would he be allowed to go through the main door the next time? Su Yu did not really understand these rules at the moment. In any case, it was best to save time and not waste it. So what if it was a little dangerous? It was not like he could not resist it. The hijacked divine text was not moving too much now. Did it mean that the danger had been eliminated? Thinking of this, Su Yu did not want to stay in this shabby house for an entire night. If it were not for the fact that he did not know what would happen if he destroyed the house, he would have wanted to demolish the house to see the situation. Whether it could be torn down or not was another matter. However, he really suspected that no one could tear down this shabby house. I have to go out and take a look. Su Yu could not hold back his temper. It was his first day here, and he was not willing to stay in this shabby place for the whole night. In addition to the death ray being worn away by him, he also had some confidence. He also wanted to see if the undead would follow him again. Carefully opening the door, Su Yu beckoned to the door. He did not go out, but he tested it first. His arm was stained with the death ray, so it could still be worn away. At the city gate. The Shanghai man was stunned for a moment, thinking that his eyes were playing tricks on him. Looking again, he saw an arm sticking out. He's fine. His luck was really good. The death ray was not stained by this guy, but his luck was pretty good. He thought that this guy was dead. "Commander, is he alright?" The other armored soldiers also saw the arm and were slightly surprised. What good luck. The death ray didn't even touch the other party. He sure was bold. He had just provoked the undead, and now he couldn't help but come out to test the other party. This kind of person was bold, and it was in line with the style of a genius. However, he didn't suffer. The armored soldier beside him laughed. If this guy had just been stained with the light of death, he would probably be scared out of his wits. He hasn't suffered before. The mountain and sea man didn't say anything. He took a look, and seeing that Su Yu was fine, he didn't say anything more. The armored soldier beside him laughed. "Commander, could it be that this guy wants to go out? If he encounters a dead spirit again and doesn't have an empty room for him to hide in, then he's dead for sure. He's already met with trouble once, could it be that he still wants to go out?" "I don't know." The commander shook his head. Who knew what these geniuses were thinking? Could this fellow in front of him really be Su Yu? Once again, he wasn't sure. That evasion technique just now was extremely fast. It was somewhat similar to Su Yu from before, but when he walked through the main door, it was incomparably difficult and also somewhat different. In any case, he was confused now. Outside the door, nothing happened. Su Yu probed for a while, but all of them were dead. He heaved a sigh of relief and walked out of the house once again. He didn't want to stay in this house all night. The street was still as deserted as before. The undead had disappeared. Su Yu walked out of the house and continued to move forward. Soon, he arrived in front of the house that had just encountered a crisis, the house that the elk was in. He wanted to see what the undead had written on the sign just now. It seemed that he had left something behind when he was writing and drawing. Su Yu glanced at the wooden board and soon saw something on it. A moose head. Huh. An incomplete moose head. Su Yu rubbed his chin and thought to himself. Could it be that if he became a resident, the undead would carve the owner of the blood on the wooden board for 3 days in a row? Then, could it be that the residents of this place had pictures of them on the wooden board? Was it so high-end? And they even drew a portrait of you. However, this portrait looked a little scary. It seemed to have been drawn with that drop of blood. It was blood red. Dong dong dong. Su Yu knocked on the door. The elk had almost killed him. He was trying to scare it. After knocking for a while, Su Yu seemed to have heard the sound of a cold shiver. He did not open the door. Su Yu laughed. Interesting, his bad taste acting up. It was the same as playing a ghost to scare people when he was young. In the distance, the mountain sea armored soldier was already speechless. F***ck. This guy was definitely not old. In the middle of the night, he had nothing to do. Knocking on the door to scare the deer in the ancient city was definitely not something a mature expert should do. This was definitely Su Yu, and Su Yu wasn't old at all. Not to mention, knocking on the door in the middle of the night was really quite scary. The ancient city was already terrifying at night. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1636. 1636 Chapter 371 Soul of the Ancient City 4. The Shanghai man did not doubt that the elk in the room was probably scared out of its wits. It might be curled up in a corner, trembling in fear. It was not a human. No matter who it was, they would all tremble. The armored soldier beside him did not know whether to laugh or cry. This guy is too bold. When we reach the 35th Ring Road, be careful of the night patrol army. The Shanghai man didn't say anything. That was his business, and it had nothing to do with him. It was true that he was extremely bold. As for Su Yu, he knocked on the door for a while, but the elk didn't open it. He didn't really care. If it were him, he wouldn't open it either. He was just a little depressed by the elk. Why would he throw out a jade talisman for no reason? Suyu didn't care about the elk anymore. He continued walking down the street. On both sides, some houses were tightly shut. Some weren't houses, but they looked more like shops. However, he didn't know what they were selling, or if anyone dared to open a shop here. After walking for a while, he saw a house with a wolf drawn on the wooden sign. Was this a local resident? Suyu thought of the unfinished elk head. So, this was a completed image. Was this wolf a resident of this place? The image was also blood red in color. It was a little scary. Sigh. Suyu sighed. No one explained the situation to him. The masked man from the heaven hunting pavilion also gave very little information. That guy only gave a general introduction of the situation and did not explain it in detail. And in this damned place, no one existed at night. Even if he wanted to ask, no one could. The armored soldier at the city gate had a good attitude before, but the other party had been waiting at the city gate. He might not come here or have any missions or restrictions. Soon, Suyu found another empty house and stood at the door. He suddenly shouted, "Is there anyone alive? Come, let's chat." He was ready to enter the house at any time. It would be troublesome if he met any undead. He wanted to leave a way out. His roar in the middle of the night had probably scared many people. Suyu did not care. He was really too confused. He did not know where to find benefits in this ancient city. Now, he really hoped that Modwa would come out and chat. As long as he did not do anything, they could chat casually. "Modwa, are you there? Come and chat." As he was shouting, under the night sky, a group of 10 armored soldiers riding black horses quickly rushed towards him. The leading armored soldier was wrapped in black armor, only revealing a pair of dark eyes. His eyes flashed coldly as he looked at Suyu. He spat out the common language and said coldly, "How dare you? In the middle of the night, don't make any noise. Quickly enter the house." Suyu finally saw a living person. It was a living person. This was because the sensory jade showed that it was a person. As for whether it was a person, he wasn't sure. In this place, it was very difficult for him to sense whether the other party was a person or not, unless the other party revealed their true form. Mountain and Sea Realm. Suyu sensed for a moment. One mountain and sea realm, and the other 9 were all Ling Yun. They weren't weak. In this damned place, there were quite a number of experts. "General, I'm new here and don't know much about the rules of this place. Can we have a chat?" Suyu smiled and said, "It's not for nothing." After saying that, a black weapon appeared in his hand. He chuckled and said, "General, can you give me some pointers?" Since it was alive, there was a need. Money could make the devil turn the millstone. The black-armored expert glanced at him coldly and shouted, "Go in." Suyu laughed dryly. "General, are you the city guards? Go in." The black-armored expert once again shouted in a low voice, "If you dare to make any more noise, I'll definitely not let you off." Suyu frowned slightly, but he quickly recovered his smile. "General, I'm just asking about the situation. Do you know Modwa? I'm his friend." Bang! At this moment, the black-armored general thrust out his long spear. Suyu quickly entered the door, and with a bang, the door was shaken by the long spear. Outside the door, the black-armored general snorted coldly. A dark light flickered in his eyes. "Since you've come to Heaven Destruction Ancient City, you better behave yourself and abide by the rules of this place. How dare you disobey the orders of the Night Patrol Army?" In the room, Suyu heard the scolding and frowned. He also snorted. The door was not damaged, and this person did not receive any punishment. It might have something to do with the fact that he was a guard here. However, he only dared to be so arrogant because he was a guard here. In the outside world, these fellows might have just been some experts from small clans, or the ones who destroyed the realm, or wanderers. In the end, because of the rules, they even dared to take care of the geniuses from large clans. Dog relying on the power of others. Su Yu cursed in his heart. This ancient city wasn't yours. It had existed since ancient times. You guys were just borrowing it. Su Yu was helpless. Forget it. He was living under someone else's roof. For the time being, he didn't know the situation. Don't provoke him. I know how to admit defeat. Su Yu shouted again, General, can I trouble you to ask where Modwa lives? Shut up. If you continue to be noisy, I'll expel you out of the ancient city. Outside the door, the general scolded again. As for Su Yu, his expression changed for a moment. He said faintly, General, the residents and guards of the ancient city can't possibly not leave the ancient city for the rest of their lives, right? There will always be a time when they will leave. Why do you have to be so unreasonable? Outside the door, the general was slightly startled. This fellow was threatening him. He did not expect that. There was actually someone who dared to threaten the night patrol army in the ancient city. With a cold snort, the black-armored general said coldly, Human, don't provoke me. Do you think that you can be safe just by staying in your house? The night patrol army has the responsibility to search for bandits. This general can apply to open your house. Do you want to die? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1637. 1637 Chapter 371 Soul of the Ancient City 5. F***CK. There was such an effect. Of course, Su Yu was not afraid of him. The other party was Shanghai City, but it felt like they were only at the first or second layer of Shanghai City. Su Yu was really not afraid. However, if he were to clash with the city guards here, it would be a huge problem if he were to provoke the city lord of the ninth layer of the Sun-Moon City. Su Yu was depressed. I was just asking about the situation. Why am I so unreasonable and arrogant? I don't even care about a mystic weapon. Forget it, I should just endure it. Once I understand the situation, I'll see if I can kill this fellow or find this fellow before I leave and kill him. Anyway, countless thoughts arose in Su Yu's mind at this moment. In the next moment, he said submissively, General, please calm down. I'm new here and I don't know anything. If I offend you, please be magnanimous. After saying that, he said, this black weapon of mine will be a gift to apologize to you, sir. After saying that, he quickly opened the door and threw a black weapon out. Very quickly, he closed the door. The black-armored general reached out and grabbed the black weapon. A dark light flashed in his eyes as he examined the black weapon. The quality of the weapon was not bad. He did not say anything else and accepted the black weapon. He said coldly, don't make any more noise. Be it gods or demons, or humans, be obedient here. Of course. Outside the door, the 10-man team left. The sound of horse hooves could be heard clearly in the night. Su Yu cursed in his heart. Just wait. My black weapon is so easy to get. I found you. Just wait and see. He turned around and looked at the new house. It was still all right. It was much bigger than the previous one. If it did not work, he would just rest here for the night. It should be almost dawn. He would go out and ask about the situation when it was dawn. Su Yu was depressed. The ancient city was really strange. Forget it, forget it. He would just rest for the night. It would be good if he wasted a night. It would also be good to consolidate his realm. He would go to find someone to inquire about the situation tomorrow. There should be humans in the city. The human elder he met at the gate seemed to be staying in the city. Su Yu casually sat down on the chair. At this moment, the tribulation word flashed. Su Yu's heart stirred slightly as he looked around. Was there danger in the room? It can't be. He looked around and didn't see any danger. But at this moment, Su Yu didn't detect that the faint aura of death that was seeping in from all directions was very weak. However, very soon, just as Su Yu was about to cultivate and take out a little bit of heaven yuan qi, suddenly, a series of hissing sounds could be heard. Su Yu was shocked. At this moment, he realized that something was amiss. F***ck. The aura of death was very weak, and he couldn't sense anything amiss. However, there was a conflict between the other party and the heaven's origin energy. At this moment, a collision occurred swiftly. I have to leave within 3 days. At this moment, Su Yu was in a daze, and he was jolted awake. I have to leave within 3 days. Why do I have to leave? Was it because there was a deathly aura silently seeping into this damned place? This wasn't a safe house, it was a huge pit. However, someone should have noticed the abnormality and given him 3 days. Within 3 days, the effect shouldn't be too great, but if it was more than 3 days, the deathly aura might erupt violently and kill people. No wonder someone died here for no reason. Terrifying. If there's no heaven yuan qi, wouldn't I know nothing about it? Just as Su Yu was thinking about this, a light ring suddenly spread out from the surface of his body, removing some of the weak death aura. Su Yu was stunned. What was this? After a long while, Su Yu muttered, "This is the reward for passing the main city gate." He carefully looked at the 9 circles of light. At this moment, the first circle of light was a little weak. This circle of light was showing signs of collapsing after wearing down a little bit of the aura of death. 9 circles of light, so it could resist the aura of death 9 times. So, people who come through the main city gate can stay for a few more days. One by one, doubts appeared in Su Yu's mind. Looking at this house again. F***ck, this wasn't a house, this was a coffin. A coffin. Su Yu had this horrifying thought in his mind. This ancient city was evil.